Good morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. I want to welcome all of you to the Los Animas County Regular Board of County Commissioners meeting. It is now 9 o'clock, and this meeting has come to order. Please rise for an invocation by Commissioner Tony Haas, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Luis Lopez.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today to ask that you lay your healing hands upon all those that are sick and suffering. Be with us and guide us in all our decisions today to be fair and equitable. Please deliver us. Please deliver them from their circumstances. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Roll call, Mr. Duncan.
Commissioner Haas.
Here.
Commissioner Luis Lopez.
Here.
Commissioner Peterson.
Here. Approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda, Mr. Duncan?
No changes to the agenda, Commissioner.
I will entertain a motion.
Move for approval of the agenda.
Second motion.
Commissioner Luis Lopez.
Yes.
Commissioner Haas. Yes. Commissioner Peterson.
Yes. Before we go into the next section, I want to make an announcement. At 10 a.m. sharply, whatever we are on this meeting, we will stop this meeting and we're going to go into a public hearing. So 10 a.m. for an application that is coming before the Board of County Commissioners. So keep that in mind. The agenda will continue to go. We will take a recess to go into the public hearing. So on that note, I'm going to go to section 2, reading of correspondence, Commissioners' Committee reports. Commissioner Tony Haas, would you like to go first?
Sure. On the 15th of June, PCMS, Pinyon Canyon and Newport site had a Section 106 procedures hearing for cultural resources. Fort Carson is incorporating an alternative approach to the management of cultural resources for both Fort Carson and Pinyon Canyon and Newport site. Under the Army Alternative Procedures, this approach will replace the current programmatic agreements. This process will replace the current project review and protocol. The Pinyon Canyon Maneuver Site Cultural Resources staff will be out reaching on the various options for maintenance on the historical ranches and negotiations and mitigations and treatments. The conversation that day revolved around how to assess the effects to historical properties and what the best management practices that are available and minimize damage and secure historical data. On the 16th, Southeast Colorado Veterinary Task Force, I had an appointment to this task force. What they're doing is trying to figure out how the vision would be from I-25 to Kansas and I-70 south to New Mexico. In southeast Colorado, what they're going to do is possibly call retired vets to mentor new vets to make it more amenable to those individuals when they're making the normal transgression into the veterinary practices. If they can get some of the older vets to come and help them move forward. Dr. Leone was present from Rocky Ford. He recognized that there was a shortage of vets and that they're booked out on surgeries for over 3 months. He's personally doing 10 surgeries a day. And I asked him what is the primary cause that we have this shortage. He said the debt that is acquired by the students is over $250,000 when they're done. Here in Los Animas County, we opted into a program that would help with some of that forgiveness of student debt to kind of help that process move forward. What it would do would require those individuals to stay in the area, in the county, and practice for 3 years. I know that Erica Shannon, Pat and Nikki Shannon's daughter is already taking part of that program as a result. One more report in a different book here. CCI had a discussion on some proposed legislation brought forward by Larimer County and their Ag Advisory Board. The legislation would allow counties to establish a voluntary agriculture district to circumvent the loss of agriculture land and water due to urban sprawl, recognizing that ag provides beneficial economy and cultural value, wildlife habitat, carbon sequestration, and pollinator habitat. This bill would also incentivize ag landowners and producers to stay in the business, but they haven't figured out how that's going to work yet. These incentives would also assist counties wishing to create a voluntary ag district to stem the loss of ag land and water. The voluntary ag district would be an overlay district, and it was unclear what incentives would be afforded to producers, however. That's my report.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Luis Lopez.
Thank you, Chairman. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here today. On the 7th of June, we had the Farmington Passenger Rail General Manager Andy Karzian attend, and Chrissy Bright, his assistant at Trinidad State College, for information regarding the Farmington Passenger Rail, which is moving forward at this time and where we're at. The stakeholders at the meeting had some good questions. The main topic or main discussion that was a concern of some of the stakeholders representing Los Angeles County Commissioners was eminent domain. As a board member, I stated to them that eminent domain was not going to be a factor at this junction, at this point with this board of directors up and down the front range. And that's across the board for the entire board of directors. We were trying to work with Burlington Northern and using their right-of-ways and their track moving forward this time. It was a great, successful meeting, and I want to thank Mr. Tom Murphy with Trinidad Times TV for being there, for recording it and videotaping it. If you missed it, you can go and look up Trinidad Times TV and review the meeting that happened and all the questioning and the slideshow regarding Farmington's Passenger Rail. So Tom, thanks for doing that for us. On the 8th of June, the Urban Renewal Authority convened a meeting, and it's pretty much business as usual. We're moving forward with compiling a list of buildings in the community with our economic office and with the building inspector of the city of Trinidad, and moving forward with identifying blighted homes in the community, which we will possibly be moving forward with to get a better sense of those folks to either comply with the building municipal codes or condemn condemnation of their properties. We would rather really see them come into compliance and be able to be an asset to the community, possibly assisting them or contractors moving forward. We will be inviting the USDA to do a presentation, as well as the chapter representatives to come to Los Angeles County and possibly do them on the same day, Chairman, for the county commissioners, and the night meeting for city council. That might be easier for both the representatives to do so. On the 13th, I met with House Representatives Mr. Ty Winters to discuss future legislation for next session. It was a very productive meeting. I'm going to have some discussion with other commissioners throughout the region of District 47. The main topic was district attorney funding and how we could possibly move forward with assisting with these rural counties with the DA's offices, since there tend to be the prosecution is underfunded versus the state public defender's office, which is funded by the state. So there are going to be some stakeholder meetings, some conversations with yourselves, my fellow commissioners, to CCI to see if there's any support with that, and before we even get to the next level. So this will be the beginning stages of initiating some conversation for some possible legislation for additional funding or funding in totality by the state instead of the counties to the district attorney's office, which most counties struggle to do so at this time. And that was the main topic, is what we spoke about many other issues, but that's the main one. Ontario Partners Incorporated met yesterday morning. I'm proud to say we approved 2 more loans for Los Angeles County small businesses exceeding $50,000+. So this program is really being a huge success to Los Angeles County businesses, and I'm proud to be on that board, assisting these small businesses to come to fruition and assisting them get their feet off the ground. So again, media, thank you for pushing that out there. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for having that meeting here at Trinidad State College months ago, because we're getting a lot of traction due to that meeting. So for you small business owners, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me moving forward for applications of small business loans up to $150,000 are available, and some could be more through the revolved dollar funds. And Chairman, that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. To avoid redundancy, some of the meetings were attended as well as commissioners attended. One of the ones that I want to put out there is I serve on the Princeton Scholarship Glory Committee. And Los Animas County graduates from high school are eligible to go to Princeton, basically everything paid for. So we had a meeting yesterday, and one of the comments came out of there is there hasn't been enough recruiting in Los Animas County. I don't know that we have any applicants for this upcoming academic year, so pass on the word. And I challenge Princeton to send their recruiters to Los Animas County, to all the schools, and personally volunteer to drive them to these places, because we have some bright minds in Los Animas County. We have had a handful of students going to Princeton all the way from their undergrad into their graduate programs, and the award is pretty hefty. We have a student right now going through the process on the graduate program. It was awarded $92,000 a year to cover tuition fees, room and board, and living expenses. So that's really cool. So that's one of the things that we have going here in Los Animas County. Another meeting I attended last Friday was the National Association of Counties, where all of us gave reports on, from the Western Union, what's happening with water. And as you all know, the Colorado River has been the center of discussion for the water that is flowing westward. And so that topic through the Farm Bill, and that's one of the hot topics that as we go to the national conference is going to be on the table. How much water do we appropriate to the lower states? We being in Colorado. And if you are interested in seeing what's happening there, go to the National Association of Counties website. Incredible information in there. And I just want to give a shout out to the Elks and to the American Legion for hosting a ceremony for Flag Day, June 14th. It was pretty well attended and a very, very heartwarming ceremony. So thanks to all of them that hosted us. And that would be my report today. So on that, we're going to go to elected officials update. I have a note from our county assessor, Mr. Joey Amaro, nothing to report. Sheriff, since you're here, do you have any report to provide to us?
Yeah, just one.
Good morning, and
Good morning. I'd just like to report on our memorial highway signs for our fallen deputies. Back in 2021, then Senator Crowder had brought forth the resolution to dedicate a portion of 160, milepost 347 and 348 for our fallen deputies, Travis Russell and Matt Moreno. I'm proud to say that that sign has been put up through a lot of donations to our community, businesses. We were able to raise the funds, and it is now up on the highway in both directions. So just wanted to give you a quick update. At a later day, I'd like to put this on the agenda to kind of make that a public record and maybe a recognized event. So I'm just happy that that's about it for me now.
So you will be hosting a ceremony at the site of
I would like to, barring safety issues, because it's right off the side of the highway at milepost 347. And that's facing east, and then if you're coming west, it's at 348. Well, I will put that on the agenda. Hopefully we can make a public resolution, just to publicly recognize it. That's about all I have for now.
Thank you, Sheriff. I did drive by after we spoke last week and saw the signs up. So I did call Andy Karzin, who's down the Front Range Passenger Rail, but he was the one that I contacted with you. And when he's with CDOT, and he was very happy to see it come to fruition, so he's excited. Congratulations.
I'd also like to especially thank State Representatives Richard Holtorf. He and Senator Simpson picked this project up when Senator Crowder, unfortunately, his term ended before it was able to get passed. So they knew the importance of this project, so they took that on, and I'm extremely grateful for their efforts.
Thank you, Sheriff. Anybody else? I'm going to call on the clerk and recorder's office. Anyone to provide an update? Anyone from the treasurer's office? An update from the district attorney's office? An update from the coroner? Hearing none, we are going to go to the next section of our agenda. Unfinished business. Oh, public comment. Now, council on this particular one, perhaps, I don't know if these public comments will be related to.
So if you could just ask those who signed up if it is related to the public hearing, you could just have it held till then.
I have two individuals signed up for a public hearing. If these are related to the public hearing that we're going to be having later on at 10 a.m., if you're in the audience, Billy Adams, are you wishing to comment on the project for the application by El Coran Solar? Is that?
We just signed up. I didn't know it was going to make comments. But no, just attendance is what we're looking for.
Okay. All right. So in any event, on this particular public comment section, if you wanted to address this board, you're welcome to, and as well as Mr. Bob Adams, certainly the same. But at 10 o'clock, we will be hosting this public hearing, and you're more than welcome at that time. If you want to make any comments, to please we'll call on you and for that option, sir.
Excuse me, I am here for that 10 o'clock meeting, but I do have something, if you don't mind, I'd like to give you now.
We'll wait till 10 o'clock, sir. If it's related to the project, we will wait till we open up the public hearing.
More than fine, thank you. Okay,
thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Having no public comment, now we're going to go to the section 6. Anyone online at this time for public comment? Raise your hand or simply unmute yourself. Okay, we're going to go to unfinished business. Consideration of letter notifying Las Animas County Clerk of ballot measure. Mr. Dornicott.
Commissioners, at your past meeting, the board tabled this consideration, so we brought it back for the board's consideration since you have a full complement of commissioners. Last session, Commissioner Haas had prior obligations, so he was not able to attend. So that's what's in front of me.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, do we have any additional discussion, any questions on that particular subject?
But Chairman, I think since we've already had a work session on this and we've had public input from community members come before us or request this, I have no other concerns at this time moving forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Tony Haas. No concerns. Well, at this time, then I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the letter notifying Los Animas County's clerk of ballot measure.
Second motion.
Commissioner Haas?
Yes.
Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Felix Lopez?
Boy, this is pretty tough for me. I'm going to be a no today. Certainly, I really appreciate all the work that has been done in the community. So that's going to be my vote. And Mr. Dornicott, would you please read the resolution?
Dear Terry Apple, Los Animas County Clerk and Recorder, please consider this letter as serving notice that Los Animas County intends to participate in the November 7th, 2023 election, which will place a ballot measure asking voters to extend the terms Los Animas County Commission may serve from the current 2 4-year terms to 3 4-year terms, followed by your signature lines.
Thank you, sir. Motion is approved. We're going to go to section 7. New business, consideration of courthouse plumbing renovation RFQ. Mr. Dorrington.
Commissioner, we let courthouse plumbing renovation RFQ with a deadline of submitting, any company that was interested, a consultant that was interested would be submitting back to us by 5 p.m. this past Friday. We had 2 submissions. One company said they would not be submitting via email, and then the second company is Millig, who information is in front of you right now. The cost for the RFQ, the cost for the county to get to a point where we can have estimate for what the plumbing replacement renovation would cost would be $10,000, and then from that we would seek grant monies to try and garner enough funds to actually replace some of the plumbing within the courthouse. For the most part, the pipes are the old galvanized pipes, and no one knows when they were put in or what's being changed out. And via the RFQ, I included in there that none of the structures or the fixtures would be changed out. I think we're all kind of fond of the old style fixtures that we have in this courthouse, and my sense is I don't believe we want to change any of that out.
Is there an estimated time of completion for the first of all, the study, and then second, the construction of these, should we get the funding?
The study will be completed by mid-September. I think I set a deadline of September 15th because we want to go after underfunded and also DOMA grants if we need to. The time frame for an additional $30,000, this firm can go ahead and do the design itself and have that design ready by mid-September. What that would allow us to do potentially is we can run both the plumbing renovation and our HVAC renovation and installation at the same time, thereby saving our consultants guessing anywhere from about 60 to 70, potentially even more funds, because we run them concurrently. We come in and renovate a seating, as an example, with the chases for the HVAC system, and they can also run the plumbing at the same time rather than coming back in at a later time. That's an additional $30,000. But what's in front of you right now is just the RFQ itself, and then we can have further discussion on whether or not we want to come up with the funding. I see Finance Director Crowley, and she's right. We're stretching funds. I mean, we have been for some time with all the overruns out here on this project and another one coming up. Unexpected expenses that we did not anticipate last budget season, including this project. But this project came about because, repeating myself, underfunded courts funds actually ended up getting some of their funds returned to them, so they're going to put that in the pool come September. And some of our plumbing issues, we thought we'd pursue that and try and get that taken care of.
And as we look at the information that was provided here, there is, of course, pretty hard to put an estimate dollar amount for the entire project.
Yes, sir. There won't be a dollar amount for the entire project until about mid-September.
So, Chair, if I may, Mr. Dornkamp, moving forward with the study, and also this same group, did you state that they could do the plan as well, the engineering?
Correct. We've approved this RFQ. This RFQ will also, if we can get the funding, we'll also have this company doing the design on it. That was part of the RFQ.
Part of the bid document, so we're not going to be in any outside or realm of bid procurement laws
No, okay.
So it's all encompassed in the same,
Correct.
okay.
It's all within this RFQ.
That's the only question I have.
Yeah, no,
And
thank you.
design build RFQs.
I think, the question is, depending on how our next round will be funded, definitely we have created a really good relationship with that group. We have their support, and I'm hoping that they will feel that this will pretty much complete the total restoration of this building.
That's what I thought when we did the HVAC, but it's brought to my attention about our plumbing issues, and so, and it may be something that, again, comes up even if we get the plumbing taken care of in this old grand building that I'm not aware of.
Well, excuse me, the building's been neglected for decades, probably 80 years, and I'm glad we're able to start phase 1, phase 2, and now phase 3, and with the plumbing. I think it's not only necessary, it is our responsibility to protect this building since this is taxpayer owned. And if we don't get this accomplished, who will? We're in a position where we can financially obtain the money and the matches and go for the grants with our staff that we have. We've been successful in the past. If we don't do it now, when? So I'm thankful for the work that you all have put in behind this and getting this done. This would be probably the remaining piece to be done for the total finishing of this courthouse, and wouldn't have to be invested for the next 30, 40 years of the routine maintenance.
And Mr. Dorica, just as kind of a FYI for our community, speak a little bit about the proposed solar panels that could be providing enough energy for the building to be sustainable should we get the funding.
Within our HVAC design, the consultants are proposing to put, I think it's 50 kW or MW, I'm not sure, Commissioner, I don't deal with electricity at all, except to know I shouldn't be touching any bare wires. But 50 kW, I think is what is solar array on top of our courthouse to help power the HVAC system that we're anticipating putting in. And I don't know what the status of it is right now. Finance Director Kobe just returned from a meeting that she had attended where the Historic Society had input on it. I don't know what the results are. She hasn't given me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, so that's probably not a good sign. But yes, we have a solar array being proposed with our HVAC renovation. That should be coming online hopefully by the end of next summer.
With everything promoting green energy, excuse me, I don't think we should have a problem with the city of Trinidad allowing us to use solar on our own property, should we?
No, sir, I don't believe it's the city of Trent. It's a state agency that we recently changed with the energy impact monies. We went after those funds if they deem that there is a historic building and we are a historic building, or the courthouse is a historic building, that it has to pass, the project has to pass their muster also. This was recently implemented, so I'm not sure where we're at with it. We're getting way off topic, and just a comment, kind of facetiously, maybe we look at next round, figuring out a way to support this old building, especially whenever it's time of earthquakes. It's getting way off topic. Yesterday, when that one hit, things shook. And where we sit, me being myself and staff, we have 2 stories sitting on top of us, and anyway, I digress.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner, any other discussion on that? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the consideration of courthouse plumbing renovation RFQ.
Second the motion.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Felix Lopez?
Yes. Consideration of diesel fuel bid, Mr. Dorica.
Commissioner, before you for consideration is our diesel fuel bid for delivery out at the fairgrounds. And I am looking for it as we speak. With the following results. Acorn Petroleum, $3.19573 per gallon, stated price $23,009.26. Lahana Valley Oil, $2.99 per gallon, stated price $21,528.00. So I ask the board to approve Lahana Valley's bid, $2.99 per gallon, stated price $21,528. There's also 3 other companies that the bid went to, but those 3 companies did not respond.
Any discussion, commissioners? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
Move for approval of the diesel fuel bid for Lahana Valley Oil at $2.99.
Second the motion?
Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Yes. Commissioner Felix Lopez?
Yes. Consideration of unleaded fuel bid. Mr. Donovan.
Commissioner, before you is the submittals back to us for the delivery of about 8,000 gallons of unleaded fuel to our fairgrounds facility with the following results. Acorn Petroleum, $3.0442 per gallon, stated price $24,371.36. Lahana Valley Oil, $2.82 per gallon, stated price $20,560. And that's support to approve Lahana Valley's bid at $2.82 per gallon.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion, commissioners? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the unleaded fuel bid to Lahana Valley Oil for $2.82 a gallon, center price $22,560.
Second the motion.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Felix Lopez?
Yes. 7D, consideration of brownfields cleanup statement of work abatement at the fairgrounds. Mr. Donovan.
Commissioner, before you for your consideration is the Brownfields Fairgrounds cleanup statement of work for the abatement of the fairgrounds. Sometime back, we submitted an RFQ, I think it was last October, December, for getting results from different companies that perform these types of services. And within that, then we were able to submit a Brownsville grant, and we were successful in obtaining that grant, or in the process of obtaining that grant. This letter is our saying, yes, we want to go through with this grant / PO. And the estimated cost is $34,666. So I asked the board to approve this so we can clean up some of the hazardous materials we have out at the fairgrounds.
Sir, commissioners, any discussion? I will entertain a motion.
Move for approval of brownfields cleanup statement of work for abatement at the fairgrounds for $34,660.
Second motion?
Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Felix Lopez?
Yes. Consideration of brownfields cleanup statement of work abatement at Perry Stokes Airport.
Commissioner, similar to what you just approved, except this is for Perry Stokes Airport. And the estimated price on this is $78,200. So I asked the board to approve this, and I emailed the lowest RFQ submittal company, and they are still okay with that price. I've yet to get a response back from the one with the fairgrounds, but at the time, we went off on a tangent. At the time that I sent out the RFQ, I said it's going to be only dependent upon these brownfield grants fundings, and all those companies were aware of that and okay with that. So I asked the board to approve this. This is also to clean up some of the materials we have out at the Perry Stokes Airport.
One question I have highlighted here, Mr. Donovan, is that usually for the local share of expense, 7%, and I see that to be pretty much kind of 7% of the total cost.
Commissioners on this brownfields, I did not see where the county feels like they're doing
Okay,
match.
local share.
Yeah, local share cleaning shall be included in all invoices as part of the fund source.
Any discussion, commissioners? I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the Brownsville cleanup statement of work for abatement at Perry Stokes Airport, the amount of $78,200.
Second the motion.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Felix Lopez?
Yes.
If I may, Chairman, just like to ask a great appreciation for this this program, Brownsville's grants have helped the county get a lot of work done in moving forward with abatements of very hazardous materials, including this courthouse. So just a big thank you to that organization for being there for us. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Great point, Commissioner. 7F, consideration of courthouse county judge bench RFQ, Mr. Dorncap.
Commissioners, we requested any firm interested in designing a judge's bench for our county court to submit their, or respond to the RFQ that we submitted. We had out, I don't know, for a few weeks, and we had one response, and that was from Alpha Design Architects out of Raton, New Mexico. We do have underfunded funds to help pay for this, and I'd ask the board to approve this firm's submittal of their RFQ, and then we'll get into the design part of it. Once contract and everything else is in order.
And we suspect that the request that came from underfunded is going to be sufficient to cover the cost of the bench.
It will, Commissioner, I believe. His, just scroll down here, yes, sir, his initial estimate for us to go after the fund is going to be about $5,000 then. If he, $10,000 then to do the design on the bench itself and all the ADA required modifications that are going to be taking place in that county court will be an additional $5,000, and we've got 30 of underfunded budgeted for this.
Thank you, sir. Any additional questions, commissioners? Dialogue? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
Move for approval of the courthouse county judge's bench RFQ award to Alpha Design.
Second motion.
Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Felix Lopez?
Yes. 7G, consideration of Perry Stokes taxiway award recommendation letter, verbal approval. Mr. Dorncap.
Commission for you is ongoing paperwork on the lawn for taxiway improvements out the airport, but off on a tangent here, but we deal with a number of governmental agencies that we deal with to get this type of work accomplished. There's a lot of paperwork involved, and this is part of that. And it's just what I'd like to get from the board is just a verbal approval to go ahead and respond to this letter, saying yes, we're good with everything, proceed. Because one note is we will send the notice of award for signature once approval is received from the county.
Thank you, Mr. Dorncap. Commissioners, any questions, comments? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve Perry Stokes taxiway award recommendation letter, verbal approval.
Second motion.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Felix Lopez?
Yes. 7H, consideration of resolution number 23-015, land use regulation amendment, decommissioning reclamation plan requirements. Mr. Dorncap.
Commissioners, at your past meeting, the board approved a modification or amendment to section 7.14-.04 of our land use regulations to adhere to, or not adhere to, but to add to the decommissioning process that any renewable energy company will have to go through. And that's what's in front of you is the resolution putting that in play.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions, any comments? Otherwise, I'm going to ask Mr. Dorncap to read the resolution.
Resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of Los Angeles County, Colorado, adopting amendments to section 7.14.04 of the Los Angeles County Land Use Regulations Decommissioning Reclamation Plan Requirements, resolution number 23-015. Whereas the Board of County Commissioners of Los Angeles County, Colorado, and the board is authorized to provide for the physical development and regulation of the county pursuant to CRS 29-20-102, and whereas the board has adopted land use regulations based on the authority given to do so in CRS 29-20-104, print 1, imprint, print G, imprint, and whereas section 7.14.04 Los Animas County land use regulations touch briefly on requirements for decommissioning solar and wind farms, and whereas current process and advancements in solar and wind farm arenas has created a need for updating decommissioning / reclamation regulation and plans for solar and wind farms, and whereas Los Animas County land use officer has recommended certain changes to the decommissioning / reclamation requirements in the land use regulations, and whereas Los Animas County Planning Commission, acting in an advisory capacity to the board, did review proposed amendments to the land use regulations and did recommend approval to the board at their meeting on May 1, 2023, and whereas the board conducted a public hearing on June 6, 2023, in the chambers of the county commissioners in Los Animas County Courthouse for receipt of public comment on the proposed amendments to the land use regulations, and whereas public notice of the hearing was given by publication in the newspaper and general circulation in the county's 14th print, 14th imprint, days prior to the public hearing, and at the public hearing testimony was taken from all persons appearing and wishing to give testimony, and whereas the board has taken into consideration recommendation of Los Animas County Planning Commission in public testimony, and whereas the board finds that the adoption of the recommended amendments to section 7.14.04 minutes as put on the record at the hearing is in the best interest of the county and its residents, and that these amendments are required for the continued preservation of public health, safety, and general welfare, and for the control and orderly growth of the unincorporated territory of Los Animas County, Colorado. Now therefore be resolved by the Board of County Commissioners, Los Animas County, Colorado, that 1, Section 7.14.04 of Los Animas County land use regulations shall be hereby replaced in its entirety with amendments as hereby set out in the attached Exhibit A. Our motion made and second affirming the vote this resolution was adopted this 20th of June 2023 by order of the Board of County Commission, Los Animas County, Colorado, followed by your signature lines.
Sir, there is no further discussion. I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve resolution 23015, land use regulation amendment, decommission reclamation plan requirements.
Second motion.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Felix Lopez?
Yes. Thank you for all the work that was done there. Thanks to our land use director, Mr. Lucero. 7I, consideration of Prairie Slopes taxiway award concurrence letter. Mr. Duncan.
Commissioners, part of the taxiway improvements out at the airport, this letter of concurrence needs, if we want to proceed with that, needs to be approved and signed by the board. It basically says, yes, we reviewed and we have the estimates for the cost, well, not even the estimates, actually the bid for the cost of doing those phases out there at the taxiway. I think phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 had to be dropped because of the price of the original bid. And so to get back into the budget, phase 3, for the most part, was dropped. So that's the work to approve this concurrence letter so we can get us into the FAA and get the project underway.
Any questions, commissioners, or any comments even from our finance director?
So what we just approved earlier, did that include phase 3?
We did.
It didn't? Okay. So I'm not going to look like it did, but we should look at that.
Thank you. Any other discussion, commissioners? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
Move for approval of the Prairie Slopes taxiway award concurrence letter.
Second the motion.
Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Felix Lopez?
Yes. 7J, consideration of E-rate telephone communications provider. Well, good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning again. So we had looked into some different options for our inmate telephone communications. Our current provider hasn't been real responsive to some of our requests, so I was looking for upgrades. I did find several companies that do provide this. We did meetings with several, and we came to the conclusion of a company called Combined Public Communications. I've had discussions with Ms. Nelson about contractual issues with this company, and they did write up a proposal. I think that was sent to you. I don't know if you have any questions on that. But this kind of service doesn't cost the county. They work off of commissions for inmate. They buy the time to use the telephone service. What this company will do is upgrade us to video visitation. So families will be able to visit through video screens. It might make our staff issues a little better because now we don't have to, if people want to call in rather than come down to the facility, that'll be an option. This company gave us the best proposal, and I think it will really make our facility run smoothly.
Thank you, Sheriff. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Sheriff Navarrete?
One question, Chair. Years ago, when we went through the last company, I think it was 6-7 years ago, I think there was an issue brought up for the hearing impaired for ADA compliance. Is that all?
This will address that. They do have technology for that, so that is one part of the reason why we didn't go with this company. They'll have that available.
Any other question I have, any concerns from legal counsel moving forward?
I addressed those with Sheriff Navarrete, and he had the company address them. The contracts or agreements as presented in your packet are complete.
Thank you. So Sheriff, one question that you have on the interface requirements, is there going to be where if conversations are happening, and I'm going to go just simply make an assumption where the safety of the jail facility personnel is being compromised, is there going to be a way that there is going to be some kind of interface for you to be aware of what's happening?
Yes, the system allows us to see everything that comes in and out, and we can actually hear recordings. And there's also going to be an option for a texting type device that they might bring in at a later date, and we are able to review any incoming and outgoing messages. And those messages can be, they can be regulated to certain numbers. And also, they're going to provide their own internet service to take care of all the incoming traffic with additional. So they'll provide their own hub for internet.
And then, of course, based on that internet connectivity, there is not going to be any interference with your regular.
No, they're going to provide their own internet hub in the building so that high speed through our existing CCOM internet provider.
Will there be any limitations put on to how long they can be on there?
Yeah, there'll be certain times those services will be shut off for safety reasons. We could regulate all that through the system and the software.
This will be accessible to them 24 hours a day, pretty much.
There'll be a time when we'll probably stop the communications for safety reasons, for inmate movement, different things like that, but we can adjust those times.
Just like regular normal visiting hours, do not phone time.
Yes.
And so now, the program you're using now, the company you're using now, you're monitoring them anyway, the conversations, or?
Yes, we can monitor.
So it won't be any additional expense
No.
of FTEs or anything?
No.
Okay.
No, we will get a percentage of the commission off of the service as well. That's how the company makes their funds. And they don't charge us for the equipment.
Thank you, Sheriff.
And the only other question was if I could sign the contract or if one of the board members had to sign it, so I will do that up to this council.
It's the sheriff's contract.
Thank you, Councilman.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other discussion, questions? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
For approval for the inmate telephone communication provider.
Second motion. Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Higgs Lopez?
Yes. Okay. Take a vote on the teammate telecommunications center.
He didn't say yes or no.
So so my vote is yes.
I'm sorry, I broke down the yes.
Okay, very good.
I'll run it again.
At this time, Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to take a brief recess before we start our hearing. This is planning. Second motion.
Commissioner Hass? Yes. Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Dixon?
So we'll come back exactly at 10 a.m. to open up the public hearing.
Public hearing. Okay, I can't tell if they voted on this 7J yet, because Hey, Tony, did you guys vote on 7J? I just got
Well, good morning, everyone. Today, once again, it is June 20th,
Recording in progress.
2023. It is now 10 a.m. We're going to call this public hearing to order. And at this time, let me go through some of the protocol that will take place today. Each person wishing to give testimony before the board or make comment on the topic for which the public hearing is being conducted shall be administered an oath committing to the truthfulness in the giving of your testimony of the making of comment to the board. The oath shall be administered today by our county attorney, and it could also be done by the chairman of the board in the event that our legal counsel is absent. For those of you online, the regulations are equally the same. So we're going to enter into the public hearing, application HUP 2023-003 by Elk Solar LLC, wholly owned subsidiary of Cypress Creek Renewable LLC. The proposed facility is located about 8.6 miles east of the town of Aguilar on approximately 2,081 acres of leased private land in part of section 6, 7, 8, 17, and 18 of Township 30S, range 63W, and parts of section 12, Township 30S, range 64 west. The project will consist of up to 200 megawatts of clean renewable solar energy and 100 megawatts of battery energy storage. The proposed special use permit will not change the zoning, but if granted, would allow for a non-conforming use within the zone not otherwise allowed without a special use permit. So at this time, I'm going to call Land Use Director, Mr. Robert Lucero. Please come forward and be sworn in.
Do you solemnly affirm under the penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name for the record.
Robert Lucero,
Thank you.
Los Angeles County Planning and Land Use Director. The Alpine Solar Facility was heard by the Planning Commission originally on April the 3rd. That was tabled at that time, and we reheard it on May 1st. But at that time, the Planning Commission made the recommendation to approve with the condition that the Alpine Solar is in compliance with Colorado law and that the bond is reviewed every 5 years if it's approved.
Thank you, Mr. Lucero. Commissioners, do you guys have any questions for Mr. Lucero?
Sure, I do. Mr. Lucero, has that information come forward to you at this time regarding the concern of the planning of being in compliance? Or what was their issue? They tabled it?
I think what we originally tabled it to try and give the applicant an opportunity to discuss with some of the mineral owners at that time.
And I read that in the minutes.
I was provided, and you have it in, because I wanted to make sure they were communicating, or the planning commission.
Has that
And it has occurred. You have a log in there to indicate that they have been in communication since, I think it was July. So,
It was resolved?
what's it?
It was resolved?
I don't know. But we needed to move forward on specifically on the application.
TV?
Sounds like we got to open mic somewhere.
Go ahead and turn your volume up.
There it is.
Mr. Lucero, one of the questions I have when we look at, I looked at the cultural survey, basically, let me see the section of the impact review mitigation, cultural survey. I'm looking at page 152 of the packet, which is, you don't have it number the way I do, but certainly my question is the following. It says here, cultural surveys are not necessarily applicable for private property. However, there are no Colorado state laws that provide protection to cultural resources on private lands. However, the Las Animas County land use regulations require, we use the word require, that special use permit applications evaluate potential impacts to archaeological and historical resources. Did the company provide and meet that requirement?
As far as I know, yes, that in their research, in their, they did look at that.
There is another question that I have, basically on the same concept, discovery of human remains. Of course, the project hasn't begun yet, but in here, the response was the sheriff, the coroner, will immediately be notified and the project will be stopped until an investigation is complete. Was that conversation had, was that clarified within the applicant and the land use board?
I think Zach and I had that conversation, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Haas, any questions?
I have one more,
Please.
Chair, regarding the noxious weeds, and that's been addressed in this from what I'm reading. Will the county have any oversight on that and assistance with them as we do on our right-of-ways, or how are we going to work with that organization?
Yeah, what we can do is, when they come up with their plan, whether they're going to bare ground it or whatever, I know I'm experienced enough to know to go out and take a look and if there's an issue. Because of the solar facility is situated, they will have to maintain, because they can't have weeds covering the panels. In there, so I'm not sure if you're going to bare ground it or, it's going to have to be when you do a noxious weed program, it's got to be monitored every year. Okay. I'm not aware of any Class B weeds other than a few maybe on the road, like knapweed and thistle, which is pretty normal in the county, especially now that we've had a lot of moisture. But that area, we haven't had any problem with any of the Class B weeds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have more questions, Chair.
We can ask him to make the presentation.
Okay. I think for now, Mr. Lucero, just remain in the audience and know that you have been sworn in. If we have any additional questions, we'll call you out to the podium once again. So at this time, we're going to call the proponents of this project, and all those of you that are going to be speaking on behalf of the project, please come forward to be sworn in. Council?
solemnly affirm under the penalty of perjury, the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And please state each of your names.
Zach Bartholomew.
Jordan Bunch, outside counsel. Sarah Sturdley, ICF Consulting.
Thank you.
Mr. Bartholomew, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome, and please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you guys so much. I'm going to try and get this full screen. Okay. It's full screen on my screen, but there it is. Okay, thank you for your time today, commissioners. I appreciate it. My name is Zach Bartholomew on behalf of Cypress Creek Renewables. I'm the head project developer for this project, Outrun Solar, as well as the entire Colorado market. I have a portfolio of about 10 to 12 projects in the state of Colorado, Outrun Solar being one of them. So I drafted up a quick presentation here. I'll run through it and we'll open it up for Q&A as well. So the project team here, So my boss is the development director. His name is Ty Wallace out of the Los Angeles, California office. Myself, Zach Bartholomew, the head project developer for the project. We also have our environmental team. Saya Stratton is the director, as well as Julie Albert, who's online today. She's our senior environmental manager. And then we have Sarah right here with ICF, our main consultant for this project, and her counterpart, Melanie Martin, as well. We also have Jordan Bunch right here from Holland and Hart with us, and then our landowners in the back, Hunter Brown and his ranch hand, Jeff. Cypress Creek, we operate on 5 core values. Our 5 core values are care, courage, creativity, conviction, and collaboration. We make sure to abide by all of these standards when doing any sort of project. Core competencies, there's a lot of words on the slide, but just to highlight a few, we do have O&M service as well as fleet and office area development branch as well. We have an award-winning structured finance team that we have based out of the Santa Monica office as well. And to date, we have about 12 gigawatts of solar energy projects developed within the United States. Here's a map showing our footprint in the United States. You'll see, I guess, obviously the most important here to talk about today is Colorado. So those 2 in green are fully developed transmission scale projects. The ones in blue are obviously DG or community scale projects, less than 10 megawatts. What you won't see on here is the projects being developed that I'm currently working on. So that's, like I mentioned, 10 to 12, including Elk Run Solar, mostly all between Colorado Springs, Trinidad, and East. Different Colorado Power Pathway place. Here's some pictures of what these projects might look like. I'm sure, obviously, just driving down here from Colorado Springs, I saw a couple myself. But if you look at Vail Air, that top right one in Oregon, you'll see some mountains in the background. If I had to guess, this would probably be the most applicable to how this project will look up on solar. Benefiting communities, Cypress Creek Renewables is very keen on making sure we are part of the community and a positive impact. So to this date, we have $65 million total invested in community, including annual property taxes. I'll also get in a little bit later to Los Animas County, specifically in the city of Trinidad, on how we have already started some positive impacts and planning for the future. Our Cypress Creek's design philosophy, we're very well-established, responsible developer. We extensively survey project areas, construct strict due diligence efforts for biological, wetland delineation, environmental impacts, cultural sites, and other constraints. So actually, before I started my presentation, I was going to mention this, and I completely forgot, but to y'all's questions from Mr. Lucero, we did conduct Class 3 cultural reports. We also have a noxious weed management plan that's included in the SUP. And then as far as the mineral negotiations, that was the reason for the original table. We have plenty of evidence to back up how much progress we have made since then.
You verified for the Class 3 archaeological survey, how many classes and what exactly does that mean?
Is there a question?
Please.
Sure. The Class 3 cultural survey includes full ground surveys of the whole project area. So they do transects and do shovel test surveys every, certain amount of time. So the whole project area was actually ground surveyed. The archaeologists prepared a report and submitted it to the SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office. And they responded that they were in agreement with all the cultural findings, and also I believe there were a couple of cultural resources that were discovered during the surveys, and those were all avoided during the siting project. Does that help answer your question?
Thank you.
Chairman, for me, Sarah, quick question for you. Have you guys obtained a NEPA study for this site, or is it required under this type of project?
No, there's no federal nexus for the project. It's private land only, so there's no NEPA study required. There was an environmental impact and mitigation review that was done, and that is also in the application.
So, One follow-up. You mentioned that they found a couple of sections with resources. What exactly are those? And you said they avoided them. Can you extrapolate on that, please?
They were resources that I believe would be considered NRH eligible if they were to be, looked at further. But they have implemented avoidance buffers, and the project where they're developing is actually not even near those cultural sites. So with the current avoidance, I don't believe any further mitigation or actions would be required for those cultural resources.
So you're saying that part of the project would not be used for construction?
Correct, yeah.
And then you will later on identify that on that map as to where those resources are?
They have been identified.
Okay.
They are in the cultural resources report, which could be, if you'd like to see that, we can submit that to you for review. But those are sensitive sites too, and so typically they're not available for the public to view.
So Native American tribes, that sort of thing, you concur with that?
Yes, and they did send out letters to tribes with historic ties to the area.
Yeah, we'll have a slide coming on different agencies and correspondence, so that might answer some of these questions as well. But yes, as far as traffic, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Appreciate it. So we'll talk project specifics now, a little bit more project specific rather than just company wide. But Elk Run Solar, so this project is 2,000 acres, our land here, 100 Brown. This project will have, under those 2,000 acres, about 1,465 acres will be the PV array itself. This project is going to be 200 megawatts AC, 260 megawatts DC. We also have the option to include a 100 megawatt battery that's still up in the air. And this will be connecting to the tri-state system, which will be the Gladstone to Walsenburg 230 kV line.
Back up 1 second.
Yes, sir.
Here, can you define that? The 800 watt battery?
The 100 megawatt battery?
Yeah,
yes, sir.
What
yes,
does
sir.
up in the air mean?
Up in the air as in site-specific planning, the financial side of it, the RFP side of it. There's a lot of things that go into what Tri-State needs as far as their load.
Does that need to be part of the SUP and the application?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So it's included just?
Yes, sir.
That was okay?
Yes, sir. So from a building perspective, for us, it's going to be part of the option. As far as the SUP itself, yes, we would like to gain approval for that.
So on the storage facility, are you using capacitors to store the energy?
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
you're talking producing 200 megawatts and storing 100, so that
Yes, sir.
tells me that at any point in time you're going to have access to that. Can
Right.
you talk a little bit about the volatility of those batteries? Where are they manufactured?
Yes, sir.
In the event, one of the things that this is so new to personally to me, but I did so much study and reading over the last couple of weeks in expectation of this. Your batteries, in the event of a fire,
Yep.
are the local fire districts basically being trained? One of the things that we read on the news, and I found a lot of articles that indeed the emission of pollutants and also harmful fumes toxic to firefighters would be incredibly hard to put out. So can you talk a little bit about all that storage facility, the makeup of your batteries, and so on?
Yes, sir. I can definitely hit on that. I changed the slide here because a lot of those answers are here. So we do have we have committed to coordinate with the emergency responders for an emergency response plan as far as the fire goes. Your questions about the battery, these are state-of-the-art systems. So this system specifically is going to be 100 megawatts by 4-hour battery, total 400 megawatts. And
Sodium-based?
sorry?
Sodium-based batteries, or?
That's probably a better question for our storage team. I can get back to you on that one. Like I said, I'm not sure, but I'll ask the storage team because I don't know which step there.
Yeah, and I think that clarification, whether it's sodium-based or lithium, is very important once
Yes,
again, for communication to our local fire districts.
Yes, sir. So yeah, and then wildland, Fire risk is very low on this project as well, so we've done a lot of coordination with the Spanish Peaks Fire Department in the past couple of weeks. I actually gave them a donation that I'll get into in a little bit regarding those fires in Aguilar, but we can get there at a later slide. I'm not sure if that answered all your questions, but sure.
Well, since we're speaking of safety there, do you have, or have you contacted our emergency management office to incorporate this project into our emergency operations plan and attend those meetings as of yet? Or are you waiting for a result of approval or denial today before you do so?
Do you guys want to answer that? Yeah, I mean, I don't believe I know that I haven't done that specifically, but I will commit to doing that, and I can show up to those meetings as well, pending approval. Okay, great questions, and feel free to interrupt at any point as well. Elk Run Solar, interconnection studies are complete for this project. Alta topo surveys are all completed, as well as geotechnical and H&H for hydrology as well. We're obviously here today. As far as zoning goes, we're here today to gain approval for this SUP. As far as mineral outreach, we'll have a specific slide on that here in a second, and I'll go into detail there. Field surveys, full environmental surveys were completed. We also completed the entire Los Animas County Special Use Permit checklist using expertise. We also have wetland delineation complete. And then we also have a tax memo that was prepared by Ernst & Young EY, and we're using that as our tax info. So the project description, a little bit more detailed. This project is located on County Road 60, about 8.6 miles east of Aguilar, Colorado. It's located on private lands, owned by Hunter Brown, our landowner. Like I mentioned, 200 megawatt solar PV with a 100 megawatt battery. These will be, obviously, these panels will be racked on a mounting system. We'll have about 450,000 plus specific modules, racked on about 65 to 75,000 racking foundations, which will cover, like I mentioned, about 1,465 acres of the 2,000 specifically on the surface. Excuse me. Solar panels will be a maximum of about 15 height when fully tilted, so prime optimization time period will be 15 feet max. And as well as the battery energy storage system will be 10 feet max height. There's two substations that we'll need for this project. Obviously, one will be the Tri-State substation that we'll be connecting to, and we'll also build, Cypress Creek Renewables will build a collection substation as well. One thing I did want to mention that's second to last bullet, and I'll get into when I get into agency correspondence, but originally we had a 6-foot fence height around this project, and after meeting with CPW, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, they mentioned that we should go to 8 feet with a barbed wire fence on top of that, and so we did abide by that and changed our site plan effectively to 8 foot.
So you're going to be going with commercial chain link? Is that what? Just barbed wire all the way around?
Oh no, it's going to be an 8-foot chain link fence with barbed wire on top. So for people, or for wildlife, can't get over. Okay, mineral rights.
Before you go there, on your construction documents, so one of the questions that I have here is, as you're going through the construction of the project, you are anticipating using between 97 and 100 million gallons of water for construction. That's what the document identifies. Have you secured, and I know you talk about water rights for from the property, how are you going to be securing those 100 million gallons of water for your construction project?
Yeah, it's a great question. For most of our projects within our company wide, we usually bring it in on trucks, and if not, some people work with landowners on different wells and etc. But I would say for this project specifically, if I had to guess off the top of my head, we're probably going to be bringing it in.
And when you say bringing it in, is that going to be from the city of Trinidad? And
that is the goal, yes sir. We always try to go internally first.
Have you had conversations with them on that?
No sir.
Okay.
Sure. Okay, if there's no other questions there, we'll get into mineral rights and accommodations. Obviously this has been one of the hotter topics on this project given the first hearing. So I wanted to give just an overall structure. I know that you guys obviously weren't there for those first couple hearings. So here I presented a map. There's 2 total mineral tracts on this project. You'll see the red is mineral tract 1, or red and clear, and mineral tract 2 is in blue. So our surface owner, Hunter Brown, owns about 60.7, almost 61% of the minerals on this project. So given that he is the surface owner, he's worked with us and majority interest has been waived already on this project, 61%. We also have Mesa Minerals, represented by Mr. Peterson here. He owns about 30.6 of the total project area, 30.6 percentage. And then the last party is Bridwell Oil Company, which is 8.7, the last 8.7%. So since that first hearing, I want to say it was in April, we have had a good amount of negotiations and back and forth with these parties. Actually, yesterday we actually came to a full agreement as far as terms, conditions, everything with Bridwell Oil Company, and that has been signed, and I can actually scan that today. I got it signed this morning, notarized this morning. So that being said, we have Hunter Brown completely on board, as well as Bridwell Oil Company, who we have signed up today. That gives us about 69% total mineral rights coverage.
Did you say they signed up today?
They signed the contract about 3 days ago, and I notarized it today, so it's completely executed today. Fully executed. Yes, sir. And that will be recorded this week. I'll take it back to the office. And then as far as Mesa Minerals, Mr. Peterson here, we've had some negotiations in the past month, actually coming a little bit closer in my mind. I think we've had actual numbers being thrown out, conversations. Working with Mr. Peterson has been actually very communicative in the past couple months. And our goal is to be the best we can be and make sure that everyone's getting accommodated in a reasonable manner, in a fair manner. As well, I guess I should mention too, there's also BLM land on this project. We have been in negotiations with them since the very beginning of this project, and they're fully signed up on the project and give it a go. We started mineral rights owners outreach in July of 2022. There was some, I started at Cypress Creek in August of 2022, so I can't speak what happened before that. But there was some stagnant periods, and I think in the past couple months since I've taken over this project, we've been communicative as possible and coming to agreements as needed. All of these negotiations and mineral right agreements are completely compiled with the state requirements under the state of Colorado statutes for mineral owners. I'll leave it there for a second if you guys have questions specifically on the mineral rights piece. I know that's probably a big piece.
No, and I'm glad that the conversations have been going on. One of the questions from the land use board meeting that took place was that question.
Yes, sir.
And certainly, I think, as Mr. Reserve, you are giving the response.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch the last hearing, but we had Mark Henderson was in attendance from Bridwell Oil Company. There was some title issues on Bridwell Oil Company, so there was 7 or 8 different parties kind of underneath the umbrella of Bridwell Oil Company. So I think that kind of held us up, working with title company to make sure that was actually all underneath the umbrella of Bridwell Oil Company. So since the past couple weeks, we've cleared that issue, and basically it is Bridwell Oil Company, one big 8.7%, and we've come to an agreement last week.
So you do add up to 100%.
Say it again?
He does add up to 100% with all the 3 parties.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So 61, the
Yes.
30.6, and 8%. Yes, sir. So we're about 69 in negotiations with Mr. Peterson. As we mentioned earlier, so safety, noise, EMS, reflected light. As far as sound goes, this project will not exceed a daytime limit of 50 decibels for any nearby residential structures. We're also anticipating very low levels of electric and magnetic fields for the solar equipment at Elk Run Solar specifically. As mentioned just now, as far as the fire plan, we are committed to coordinating an emergency response plan with all emergency responders. Fire risk is very low for this project. Also, these battery storage systems, as we talked about earlier, do have state-of-the-art fire prevention, what are they called, I guess, tactics built into the system. As far as airplane safety, we have been in coordination with FAA and the DoD, Department of Defense. Both of them have issued no impact for our solar layout, and no hazard, I should say. As far as the light goes, these solar panels have anti-reflective glass coating and are designed to absorb as much light as possible. We also conducted a glare study and report that was developed for the project. And the project would result in negligible impacts from the glare study, is what we came to the conclusion.
So I took a look at your report, and I went and I did a lot of research on these
Yes, sir.
and study reports that you're making reference to.
Yes, sir.
And in comparison to other, with the illumination that we have here, I don't know, and I don't want to use the number how many days we have sun in San Luis County,
Yes, sir.
but definitely that film that you're putting on your solar panels, how long will it stay active, and do you intend to replace it once it is has lived its shelf life?
Yes, sir, that's a great question. Are you talking, when you say how long, are you talking a 24-hour period or the 40-year period of the project?
40-year period.
Yes, sir. So these panels are completely able to last for 40 years. They can actually go up to 45 or 50. So, if that did arise where the film, needed to be replaced or something like that, we will have operations management people there, full-time experts, 2 to 3 people on board at all times, 24/7 security. Surveillance. If they would tell me if they saw something wrong with it, they've been doing these projects for a while, and we would at that point replace it. Yes, sir. But as far as the industry as a whole, these panels as a whole, and how they're manufactured nowadays, they have the complete shelf life to last for all 40 years.
And one of the things that I saw here, one of a county on the east part of the United States, on the big in their study report, one of the things that they do to have continued inspections of these panels.
Yes, sir.
And if there was any findings to communicate with the county that actually has the jurisdiction over
Right.
the approval of.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we will have the same thing. So there will be people inspecting these projects. I can't give you a time frame. I guess probably annually. But as well as the O&M people, the operations management people know exactly what they're doing, and then they will let us know if anything needs to be.
And you mentioned the electromagnetic interference. We have a small airport in San Luis County.
Yes, sir.
And it's going to be, of course, is east of the proposed site. You're in your study on page 30 of the report, it talks about potential electromagnetic interference. And the word potential is used there. And you also mentioned in your study that you work with the Department of the Army, DOD, Department of Defense,
Okay.
to see what kind of interference that would be causing. But the word, there is a potential for electric magnetic interference. Can you, what does that mean potentially, and what would happen at that point in time?
So kind of 2 answers to that question. So the first part, as far as the DoD, they did come back. I'm looking at it here with no impact on military operations. I think to your point of EMF, I think that's more of a safety measure. Just given the nature of this this project, from the proposed solar panels, collector lines, transformers anticipated within the project boundary, I think that's more so a safety word. I don't know if you have any more context on what exactly could go into that, but I think they're going to say that regardless, just because there could be potential impacts. Is my view on it.
Please proceed.
Awesome. The last thing on this slide, engineering and building permits. I work in my company, Cypress Creek Renewables, works with third-party engineers as well as in-house engineers, expertise engineers for the site plans. As mentioned before, just about cultural surveys and tribal stuff. We obviously abide by all sorts of standards as far as setbacks. From environmental standpoints, wetland standpoints, we always have the proper setbacks, if not more. We usually try to go more just to be safe on that front. Also, our electrical design meets the National Electric Code. And we also use, as mentioned before, design practices that are utilized by Cypress Creek or state of the art. Here's a list of studies, just very high level, different, I guess you could say, topics that we've gone through and completed studies for with Sarah's team as well as other teams to the best of our ability. And the ones on the right side that are in bold are all required for the Los Animas County SUP application permit itself. It's the road use and transportation plan, the noxious weed control plan, fugitive dust control plan, and the decommissioning plan and estimate. I know that was also a condition of our approval from the last hearing. So we originally, in the SUP application, if you see it online, it's attached as a 40-year decommissioning estimate, which is still accurate. But since our last conditional approval, I am now working with Kimberly Horn, and they provided me this past week a 5-year outlook, so it's going to be updated every 5 years. They gave me a total as well, but we're going to update it every 5 years as well, and I can forward that or whatever you guys need to do to show that. Any questions on studies?
Well, I have a question for possibly Mr. Lucero.
Sure.
40 years, it's a long time from now. God willing, I'm not here anymore. However, the question is for the future commissioners or residents of Los Animas County. I have for Mr. Lucero or for yourself, Mr. Bartholomew.
Yes, sir.
Is if your organization sells this solar farm to another organization, do we need to go through the permitting process again? Who has that answer?
No, they don't need to go through the special use again, but they need to notify the county what's taking place, and they have to abide all the conditions that are included in resolution if it's approved.
So my follow-up question to that, Mr. Lucero, is as technology changes and we move forward, and again, 40 years from now, could the county at that time implement any more restrictions or rules and regulations to add to this permit we approve or deny today, or would it be sold as is what's presented?
I would assume that might be a legal question.
Right. I'm just trying to think of 40 years down the road and people of the community and where we're at with technology at that point, and different types of sodium batteries and lithiums, and it's probably going to be way different things. And is it the endangerment to the environment, the information you gave us earlier? That's my concern. But I might be going into the weeds a little bit. Thank you.
No, I think that's a great question too, and I also don't know the answer. But to your first part of that question, as far as selling, I mean, Cypress Creek, I'm not an executive at this company, but our goal is to maintain these projects and make our business model is making money off electricity, off living projects. So our goal is
sure it's in here
maintain.
somewhere.
Sure.
How many other solar projects does your organization operate now?
In the United States total?
Yes.
I don't know if there's a number on the slide.
I know I read it somewhere.
Yeah, it's well over 100. Probably 200-300. So I don't know the number, but I have 12 gigawatts. I know that.
As I'm reading this whole process, we have a lot of what-if questions. Of course, we don't expect to have the answer today.
Yes, sir.
But it's our due diligence and responsibility as the elected officials of this county to go through the process. On the documents, on Appendix A, there is a quote for decommissioning that actually says the lease to be canceled on the 186th month. So basically 15.5 years if the terms of the lease, and that's between you and the private landowner.
Correct.
But from the county perspective, if at that point in time, 15 and a half years from now, the landowner could say, you know what, I want my land back.
Yes, sir.
And at that point in time, the decommissioning process begins for your company.
Correct.
And so the decommissioning perspective, you're planning on 40 years, but within the terms of the lease that you have agreed with the landowner, it does say that 186 months, they'll consider whether this lease is going to be renewed or not.
Yes, sir.
And a lot of things have happened between now and 15 and a half years. So just a clarification that at that point in time, decommissioning and reclamation would be now part of the notification to the county, and the process would commence at that time.
Yes, sir. That's the way I understand it as well, as far as the lease goes. Hopefully that's not the case, but that is in the lease, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, as mentioned earlier, I'll go into just some agency coordination stuff. So CPW, as mentioned before, they're making sure as the fence height, we have committed to increasing our fence height to 8 feet with all surrounding it. Everything else, they have no significant concerns as far as our project outline. We also have been meeting with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We've been in coordination with them, and they have issued us a no-effect letter. FAA and DOD, I mentioned that earlier. Both these organizations have issued no hazard. And then we also have the USACE, Army Corps of Engineers, and they also got back to us and said no permit required. Spanish Peaks Fire Department, we've been in contact with. We sent them a donation for $2,500 about 2 weeks ago as part of those fires in Aguilar, just to help with the water and emergency response and stuff like that. Road and Bridge Department, at the beginning of this process, we're meeting with Mr. Dornkamp. We also had a transportation plan developed at that time, and we submitted that with the SG application that's online. Tribal outreach, as a voluntary measure, we did reach out to all tribes that were within the project area and a little bit outside the area as well. We have not actually received any feedback from those tribal outreach letters. A lot of times, that's just from my experience in solar and renewables, it's kind of normal for them to not reach back out, but we did reach out as a courtesy effort. The State Historic Preservation Office, we submitted, the cultural survey report, was submitted to the Colorado SHPO for non-mandated review. All significant cultural resources have been avoided during project siting, and the SHPO has completed the review of the cultural report and accepted the findings. The County Weed Department was the last one. Upfront Solar is going to work cooperatively with the county and private landowner to ensure that obviously all noxious weed species are managed and controlled appropriately. We obviously have a plan for that, but if anything does arise when O&M people are out there and they see something that maybe wasn't included in the plan, then we'll stop what we're doing and make sure that's taken care of. Just a couple more slides here. Economic benefits. I think that's obviously the county here. That's one of the main reasons that this is positive impact on the county. So the current 2,000 acres, call it, for this project, from a current agricultural use perspective, is estimated cumulative revenue over the next 40 years is going to be about $10,000, just under $10,000. By approving this project, that will take that $10,000 to just under $15 million as far as cumulative tax revenue for the county. I think another big thing to mention here is jobs. I know that's probably the standard when people tell you about that, but that is one of Cypress Creek's big community adders is always trying to start internally when we have these jobs for construction. And when I say internally, I mean within the county. So there's going to be 250 to 350 full-time construction jobs for about 18 months. That's about how long construction will take for a 200 megawatt project. Our goal is to put up flyers, Indeed, whatever it takes to get people from this county employed during that 18 months. After construction, we'll have 2 to 3, call it 2 to 4, at the most 4 O&M folks on board. We'll have a small facility that they can operate out of. Those will also be full-time for call it 40 years, barring anything happening or job changes, but 40-year full-time jobs. And also, we're going to try our best to keep those internal as well within the county.
Are those vacant in Davis Springs?
I'm sorry?
Are those vacant in Davis Springs?
I am not sure.
Davis Bacon law basically is a federal scale for any employee, pretty much as a national staffing pattern wages.
Yes, so you're asking how much money they're going to make basically?
If the employees, the 3 FTE that you mentioned, are going to be Davis Bacon wage for the longevity of the project.
Oh, yes. So I don't know exactly what that wage number is. I have the wage number on my report. I would like to not share that with everybody, but I can send that to you guys.
Sure, we saw that. I saw
Oh,
that.
okay, great. Yes, sir. Okay, yes, sir. We're aligned. Yes, sir. Homes Power. So this project, a 200 megawatt project with a 100 megawatt battery, is anticipated to provide enough electricity for about 35,000 homes annually, given the size of this project. This project will also produce more than 200,000 kilowatt hours per year, which, in simpler terms, is equivalent to reducing CO2 carbon emissions by about 95,000 pounds of coal annually. The last thing I want to mention on this slide, Cypress Creek Renewables, Elrun Solar, myself and our project team, we are completely understood with the BBEM, the best value employment metrics now required by the state of Colorado. Probably saw that in our decommissioning estimate, but it is included also in our new decommissioning estimate as well.
So the Planning Commission asked the question, and of course, you have to answer it specifically, but one of the things is what the question was asked, would the residents of Animas County benefit by the production of these this power? And the answer was, well, I think Tri-State and so on and so forth will be delivering indirectly to the city of Trinidad. But then my question is, as I read reports, the city of Trinidad is, and I could be wrong, has one of the highest, what is the term?
Kilowatt rate.
Kilowatt rate. So in any event, I think, and again, this is private business. I'm not advocating for you to do anything in there on behalf of the county, but certainly our residents producing, we go back to the proverbial saying that I'm a carpenter, but my house is in disarray, so we're going to pay, probably you're going to be selling it as a retail, and they're going to go back on the wholesale market.
Right.
And in a sense, everybody is about the bottom line.
Yes, sir. I completely understand what you're saying. I totally agree as well. I can't speak for Tri-State. I don't know what they're going to do with the load. Our goal is to, we have connections at Tri-State. We can have that conversation and do the best we can. They know where their capacity is needed better than myself. But I do actually totally agree. We're providing cumulative tax revenue to the county, and that's one part of it. But at the end of the day, the solar array is going in, and money is money at the end of the day.
And Isabel Electric.
Say it one more time.
That's an Isabel Electric company.
San Isabel. No, I have not worked with San Isabel a whole lot for this project. It's strictly a Tri-State place, so I'm not sure what they're going to do. They might be talking behind the scenes, but that's obviously confidential. They could be buying or doing
I
whatever.
appreciate your.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I have one other question on the location for clarification. How far east of I-25 was the project in Mines?
Less than 60. Is that the same thing?
I-25 up and down.
Is that kind of Route 60? Oh, okay. Yeah, it's 8.6 miles.
And the reason why I ask is because the legislation that was passed a couple of years ago for primary passenger rail has authority within 5 miles either side of I-25 to possibly engage in acquiring that land. So just make sure you're covered if you weren't in the right.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Thanks for letting us know that. But yes, it is further than 5 miles. I think that's really all I have for economic benefits, unless you guys have questions about more specifically the jobs, the wages, tax revenue, everything like that.
No, but if you open for any other questions, I do have a couple of other ones. On your letter of application that was dated December 29, 2022 to Mr. Robert Lucero, land use officer from San Luis County, point number 4, it states the project will not be likely to prove detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare of county residents, nor cause any hardship for neighboring persons. So the project will not be likely. Is it or isn't it?
Maybe I'm not understanding your question.
Yeah, basically on the letter that you submitted to Mr. Lucero.
Yes, sir.
You basically explain the concept of the project, and this is broken up into 12 different bullet points. Bullet point number 4 says the project will not be likely to prove detrimental to the public health.
Oh, okay.
And so just,
yeah, go ahead.
Sir, Mr. Booster, can I go ahead and
Yes,
address that?
please, go ahead.
Yes, the reason that it's worded that way is that that's what's required under the Los Angeles County Code. When you actually look at section, let me pull this up here, 2.15.03, there is a list of questions that need to be answered, and number 4 is will not be likely to prove detrimental. So we just quoted the county's own language back to you all when we were going through the bullet points.
So in quoting the language, what is your response? Will not be?
Correct, will not be. We do not believe this will prove detrimental.
Okay, and maybe perhaps, let me keep you there on the podium. Then, once again, on bullet number 6, the project will not create or contribute to blight. In the neighborhood, again, I would imagine that you got that,
yes,
you captured that from. So,
correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Jordan. Okay, last slide I have here, and then we can fully open it up for questions. Sorry, guys. I just want to speak a little bit about community engagement efforts and what we've done to this point in the past few months. So as mentioned, Cypress Creek is committed to becoming the best neighbor we can and are already in the effort of doing so. So we've also reached out to the future Aguilar Chamber of Commerce, offered to be a charter member, provide project information to the community. Cypress Creek has also been engaged with the Trinidad Community Foundation. We kind of did a small poll, I guess you could say, within the community. That was one of the organizations that had multiple responses on people that they think that could be impactful. Actually, this past week we actually just processed a $2,500 donation to the TCF for the annual community cleanup, which they gave me the dates, and I want to say it's sometime in September, October. We're also going to be committed to making recurring donations to that organization. We're working with them on not just giving them money and them sending it out to random organizations, which we are a fan of, but they've actually contacted me and said we're going to kind of have meetings on what exactly that money could go to based upon STEM-related fields, cleanup organizations, more renewable side of the community foundation. So that's a great partnership we're working with right now. I spoke about the Spanish Peaks Fire Department. We assisted them with $2,500. They asked us actually for a lot of water bottles, so we gave them money for water bottles and also just anything specifically, truck washes or anything else needed. We were able to assist with. Cypress Creek Renewables is also planning to sponsor the Los Animas County Fair. We've been in contact with the chair there. That fair is going to be held on July 25th through 29th. We're planning on having some sort of booth set up to pass out company information, project information, answer questions, speak with different off-takers, whatever it could be. We're going to be there. And the last thing is just making sure the community is well informed. So if there's ever any kind of questions from anybody in this room, whether it's community, actually donation related, question about the project site plan, whatever it is, please reach out. Our goal is to be the best we can and keep everybody informed on this project. And that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Make one recommendation to support level.
Yes, sir.
Moving forward in the future, as we're working with the Trinidad Community Foundation, they're a great organization, and you mentioned the city of Aguilar, but being so close proximity to the town of Aguilar, I believe the local school district could benefit from some of your revenue sharing for their programs that they have with their youth, possibly in instructional or insight regarding education purposes, regarding renewable energies, and or other type of programs like that. So I would hope that your organization, if this moves forward, will keep that in mind, and especially since you are in their backyard, that community. So.
Yes, sir. I totally agree. I think our first hearing there was someone from representing the school, and so that is on my mind, and I can reach out to the proper people. Thank you.
So a couple of questions on the decommissioning and reclamation plan. 40 years from now, as Commissioner Lopez clearly stated, there will be new leadership, there will be new individuals.
Sure.
One of the recommendations that came from the Planning Commission is to update and revise the bond every 5 years.
Yes, sir.
Because we don't know where the cost of materials and so on and so forth,
Yep.
and you agreed to do that.
Yep.
Here's my question to you. When you put the appendix on the process in the reclamation, at the very end of the deal, you end up actually making money by recycling all these materials. One of the things that I would not want to see is a pile of materials taken from San Luis County to someplace in Nevada,
Sure.
to a desert.
Correct.
So the commitment from that I read through your documents, through this whole concept, is that L1 LLC is willing to responsibly dispose of this. And I really like, I'm looking at your perspective, how even 4 years from now, when you recycle, resell, it's going to be another win for your company.
Sure. Yes, sir. I don't know the numbers specifically on that, but I can address your first point, and I will commit to that, barring the fact of the matter that currently, obviously, in 2023, there's only so many places you can recycle panels at. I hope in 40 years that's completely different, and hopefully there's some right around here. And if that's the case, then I will 100% commit to that. Yes, sir.
On You, on your document, page 28, you put a statement in there that this project is compatible with agriculture, and it could be. Can you tell us how high are these panels going to be? And I know on a fenced property, there's not going to be any opportunity for wildlife to enter unless somebody figures out a way to get, I mean, a small wildlife is able to get in there. But should a larger wildlife, i.e. elk or deer, was to enter the facility, how would you help that animal exit, because it's going to be fenced in all the way around 8 feet high?
Yeah, it's a great question. Might be a better question for Sarah, but just from my perspective, number one, I hope and don't see that happening, but if it did, we're going to have proper set-asides, proper, what's the word, kind of like an easement basically for these animals. So whether that's, we're trying to optimize the site plan in the best specific manner that we can have fencing based on migration patterns, different kind of soil and how elk and those bigger animals can eat, where it's located at, set asides, all that good stuff. So I think the best plan for getting it out, I would say our operations and management folks probably have dealt with this in the past. If I had to guess, I've heard stories of pronghorns jumping over 12 feet over these things, and so they'll find a way to get them out, but that's just not the norm. And when it comes to that, we'll make sure to coordinate with all the correct agencies.
What is the height of the project?
The panels themselves?
Yes.
So if fully tilted, it'll be 15 feet. That's maximum daylight potential. We'll call it 2 p.m. 15 feet at the very max. If they're just kind of laying flat like this, it'll probably be 4 to 7 feet actually off the soil. But for the most part, they're trackers, so they're always moving. But at maximum height, it'll be 15 feet. Yes, sir. I don't know if Sarah would have anything on how they get out the animals, but.
Yeah, I believe, CPW, we've been in contact with Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and they really wanted to push for the 9-foot fence because at that height, most big game species will not attempt to jump over a fence at that height. So that kind of, got rid of that concern there for them. And then there are commitments just for the O&M folks, and during construction as the fence is being built, that they would be doing sweeps, making sure animals aren't getting entrapped in the fencing, and making sure nothing, there'll be folks on staff full-time at the facility, checking for wildlife as well, and they can coordinate with CPW as needed, but at this point there's no plans for like a wildlife fence. We just don't anticipate, there's not a lot of big game out there, and we just don't anticipate that there's really going to be entrapment issues. There's no migration patterns or, routes through the area, so that's kind of the plan.
Well, and again, I'm asking all these questions because the introduction of the wolf in Colorado is taking place, and that's coming in by legislation, and certainly by ballot initiative that the state passed. And so a stressed animal may be running from, because I imagine that they're going to be introduced in the western slope, and they're going to be migratory. So the wolf is going to come our way, and certainly that could create, maybe on the day you're doing maintenance, you have the gate open, and there is wildlife getting in there. The concern, once again, is the stewardship for wildlife when we do projects such as this one. And then my last question, when it comes to habitat, to the area, being all the bird population, and I don't want to be swayed by any science, any projects. What is the impact of the bird habitat on a solar field? I mean, and then of course the internet is filled with, but scientifically, what have you found through all your facilities throughout the United States?
Yeah, I mean, just Cyber Creek specifically, I can't speak to other companies, but we haven't had a problem with it. I mean, you can, I'm sure, look up and Google whatever you want, but I mean, bad instances of that happening, those are very, very in the 0.01% chance of happening. I will say that's probably a bigger thing with wind, is maybe where you're getting. Wind projects, the turbines just naturally could cause migration patterns to deter. As far as solar, it has not been a problem in Cypress Creek renewables.
And has there been any studies after, have you had any fields decommissioned and reclaimed, and any studies of the ground, any contaminants left behind?
At Cypress Creek or myself? Because I can answer the second part.
Well, you can answer it from whatever perspective.
Okay, great. So Cypress Creek has been in operation since the early 2000s. So we haven't had to fully decommission a project yet. I will say from my previous experience with another firm that I won't name, they've been around longer. And actually, and this is going to sound like a lie, but it's not. I actually met with several landowners while at that company that had decommissioned projects, and have actually told me that their land was almost increased in its viability. Some of these farmers have had these crops and land since the 1700s, right? So basically, their point was the 40 years. I mean, this is not everybody, but I have heard a lot of this. The 40 years gives the soil a break. And when we come in there, we're obviously mowing, we're obviously trimming, we're obviously doing whatever we need to do. Sometimes we put sheep out there to make sure that grass is being picked the correct way. So I had at least 3 to 5 people told me that at that company that just that 40-year break was actually huge, and they came back and the soil felt a little bit softer and easier to plant. I have heard that.
Thank you. I just have one last question for clarification. We discussed the 1 million gallons of water.
Yes, sir.
And the conversation hasn't been taken with the city as of yet. When do you participate or anticipate that meeting happening to secure your water use?
Great question. I'm hoping in the next couple weeks. Within the next month, 100%. Yes, sir. Thank you.
At this time, Mr. Hanson, we don't have any questions for you. Remain in the audience. I will call you as the hearing continues. And I'm going to call at this point in time anybody else that may be either online or present as a proponent and supporter of this particular project. Anybody else online? Anyone online to speak on behalf and support of this project? Anyone in the audience? Okay, I'm going to open now the same courtesy to anyone opposed to this particular project, either online or present. Please come up to be sworn in.
Good morning.
Good morning. Do you solemnly affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
So help me God.
And please state your name for the record.
My name is Billy Peterson. I'm representing Mason Minerals.
And would you mind? Thank you very much. Probably have to slow this.
Y'all hear me okay? Yes, sir. Yes. I'm going to speak a bit slower because just recently had some dental work, still in pain. So I'm going for the sympathy vote here a little bit. I'm here against, not completely against this program, but I think it needs to be tabled for some further investigation and due diligence. I'm going to go back a little bit in history, and I'm going to ask Zach for a few clarifications on his slides. So the first thing I want to mention is the first Planning Commissioners meeting was held May 2nd, and the room was significantly more crowded than it is today. So I think there's this tiring process that occurs for a lot of people. I've said my words, and there we go. The results of that first one, as you should know from the records, was that it was tabled in 2 major clauses. The first clause being the accommodation discussions with mineral right owners, and the second one was whether or not all of the rules, regulations, etc., were being matched for the supplemental permit, special use permit. So I'm going to touch on the first one of that, which was the actual application to the county. First application actually had in one of the appendices that the landowner stated they owned 100% of the mineral rights. So I actually stood up and called that into question. There are 3 owners of those mineral rights. The landowner who has leased that property, Bridwell, which has recently signed after an extreme period for them of, we submitted a waiver to discuss, didn't hear anything back. I found out this morning they signed it Friday night and have been executed today. They have been in communication with me since sometime in July of 22. The letter that was submitted to the county was December of 22, stating that they have 100% rights. To me, that calls into question a lot of ethics, clarity, responsibility, but what else you might have in your documents for that. So I just put that as a baseline. So again, at that point in time, it was tabled for a couple of things, one of which was those accommodation discussions. Zach did mention that they have in the files here a log of those communications, and I don't disagree with any of that. In fact, I find it interesting they point out in July of 22 they reached out, and yet in December of 22 they said they owned 100% rights. This is kind of a timing difference, I find. Secondary to that, documents were sent to me, extremely long, legal, lengthy documents that I had submitted changes to, suggested changes to, etc. So it's not that I have not been a willing participant in this discussion about the value of my mineral rights in this particular situation. So I'm not wanting to have you all have me portrayed as someone that, hey, we tried to work with the guy, but it just hasn't happened. So there have been periods of quiet time. I had an unfortunate incident in my personal family where a brother and his wife were killed by one of their children. And so I had other people I had to deal with for a while, so I was quiet for about 2 months. But outside of that, I've been trying to be very, very proactive in this process. So I have a couple of questions I want to ask Zach before I go into some of these other things. One is, in the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation that Zach showed, there was a slide with a tremendous number of solar farms. You noted up in the right-hand corner that was going to be a very typical of what this project would be. Can you tell me how many?
Mr. Peterson,
sorry.
for purposes of the rules of this hearing, please ask the question.
Okay, I'm so
of
sorry.
us, and then certainly we can ask him. That way there is not any conflicting thing there.
I agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please proceed.
So the question to you would be, as that example is how many megawatts that the typical one that was shown as being representative of what's going to be here consists of. As this is expected to be a 200 megawatt plant. I don't know if that photo was a 10, 20, what size it might be. So I think that question should be answered. There's a question asked by the councilors, by the commissioners about the battery, the BESS system, and it was quoted to be 100 megawatts. I believe I also heard that that might be up to 4 units, and I'm just curious whether that means it's a 100 megawatt system and the containers and the difficulties to go with that, or whether it's 400, and whether the county cares one way or the other in what they do with the special use permit as to how many megawatts they're going to allow with the permit. Maybe you don't care. Maybe 100 to 400 doesn't really matter. I just think that's a concern. One of the questions that came up later was regarding fencing. I found, if I heard correctly, and I think this is a point of clarification, it was described that the Colorado Department of Wildlife looked for a 9-foot fence, but they decided an 8-foot fence would be acceptable. I understand this 8-foot fence, if I heard correctly, would have barbed wire on the top of it. I don't know how this impacts pronghorn migration. And pronghorn don't jump fences, but so obviously they're going to go around. I travel between, I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, I travel between there and here a lot, through Denver, Colorado Springs. This is the first year in a number of years I've seen both 3 or 4 deer on the highway and a pronghorn on the highway that have been hit by vehicles. And I have property in Waterloo County that I went and visited, and the first time in all the years I've gone there, I saw a herd pronghorn valley next to me. Kind of strange thing, but migration occurs. Just kind of curious whether or not this fencing is a problem. One of the points I think that I'd like to make to the county is that you've heard a lot of experts stand here and talk about, well, we have this expert, we have that expert, and this group, and that group, and this is all in our regulations, these are all in what we submitted. And a number of counties, far larger and financially more capable than this county, actually hire individuals to review a project like this, that have that background, that understand this is what it is before you as the commissioners would commit commit to a project of this length, this size, this complexity, and potential environmental impacts. So my comment to you all is that would be a consideration I would be making as far as, I'm not saying don't do this project, that's not my point. My point is there's a lot of unanswered questions here that you as your responsibility to your, whether it's a 2-year term, 4-year term, whatever that might be, have sorted to your constituents here about making a judgment based upon a lot of information. I am impressed, honestly, about the amount of research you all have done, because some of the items you have mentioned I've also seen, so I'm impressed with that. I think it's important that the comment that was made about who is being benefited from this project, there are some tax benefits, there's no question. I also pay taxes here in the county on a tremendous number of properties, mineral rights and various. Anyway, and so I pay taxes here too. The question about who does this benefit from the energy standpoint, yes, I'm pretty sure it's going to go in the wholesale channel. It's not necessarily going to help your neighbors in Trinidad or Niagara or whatever, except that overall perhaps it meets certain societal goals. I, by the way, emailed 4 or 5 different comments to each of you. I had been given a deadline to have them in the packet. Unfortunately, I had some dental work and was in the hospital for a period of time and did not be able to meet that, so I just sent my comments to you that way. I also have printouts here. If you'd like to have them, I'm happy to give them to you. The question about successor project managers, I think that should be of concern. I think a concern for the county should be administration of a project like this. What you're looking at is relying on the people who are putting this in or financially going to reward themselves from this as it goes along, aren't necessarily carrying the weight of following the remaining procedures to verify this, that, and the other. I don't know that in your special use process that there is a stipulated requirement for reporting that, hey, on these dates are milestones that you are required to provide us that you checked. You know, have you done your portion of what we said we could have this project for? The jobs aspect of this, there will be short-term jobs. Some of the people at the very first meeting indicated that they were concerned about the impact out on the short-term, long-term, 3 to 4 full-time employees being monitored out of Florida or whatever the particular activity is. It was brought up here about the decommissioning plan in the original landowner lease of 15.5 years. I don't know if that's written in somewhere or another very specifically in the special use permit. It would seem like these type of factors, which are something I was trying to address in my negotiations with these folks. What happens if you sell? What happens if you go bankrupt? What happens if this happens? And so how does it impact me? How would it impact the county? I think those are very sturdy and strong questions that should be addressed. So in general, that's pretty much what I had. I want to check one other quick thing in notes.
While you're looking for that other note, if I may, Chairman, Mr. Peterson, thank you for being here today. I have a question for you regarding the, I forget the name of the mineral rights you're representing.
Mesa
Minerals. Are you the owner of Mesa Minerals?
I am.
Okay. Or see if you're in the legal representation or legal counsel. Okay. All right. Thank you.
I have a question in this regard. So did you do a geological study of what's there? And if so, the proponents, I got a question for them. Do they know what's underneath on their property?
Well, since I'm here, let me go ahead and address that. No, I have not done a study. In fact, normally to perform a geological study on a property looking for oil, gas, and various other minerals, you might do things like a seismic test, which means going across the surface of the land, doing small little, not necessarily detonations anymore, but vibrations that allow them to sonically tell whether there are formations underneath them. In a particular situation where you put up all these panels, some of that type of investigation or prospecting, if you will, very difficult to do. So they have approached me saying, we'd be happy to have you have our reports from our geological experts tell you what's underneath on video call, they said, you know, there's nothing there. And the interesting thing about that, I recently leased land here in the county for helium prospecting. And you're probably aware there's several companies here doing that right now. They do vertical drilling. They don't typically do horizontal drilling because there's a cost involved in doing that. They typically would do the same type of prospecting you mentioned, void processing. So I told my wife, I said, well, they're willing to have somebody do that, but isn't that like having a used car salesman when you're buying a car with you ask them, am I paying too much for this car? Not to, maybe you're somebody here in the audience is a used car salesman, but I'm not sure I would trust a used car salesman to tell me what I did or did not have there. I have yet to see any proposed or provided geological studies in the area provided by CCR, Cypress Creek Renewables. So from an ownership standpoint, I've looked at what they've offered that they wanted me to pay for insurance costs, liability costs that even oil companies don't sign up for. And so I said, those are things I'm not going to do. So I sent them 19 different notes related to things that I felt either needed to be omitted, changed, or modified to even come close to the agreement. So we're at this point now because I want to be straightforward and not do anything to hurt their position in negotiation with other private owners, because that's between them and that particular owner. But I have a footprint on this property that basically, regardless of the percentage in different areas, covers the vast majority of the land these solar panels are going to be resting on. So if they come in and they don't do something here, they basically came very close to negating any value I have in the underlying mineral rights. And I've told them I have very poor performing mineral rights that in a very short period of time, compared to 40 years, would pay what they had originally offered for this. So they have come back with a sweetened pot, if you will, after I proposed numbers to them. However, they have not, even though I've requested it, provide any additional new waiver documentation or anything for review. So the working with and trying to work with the mineral right owner, which apparently at this point in time is myself, really has not gone very far. So if I'm here opposing it, it's because of the various regulations that I think that the county should be very fully aware of, that when you buy into this acceptance of this special use permit, you're comfortable with what they're saying they're going to do, From a very selfish standpoint, the very first meeting was tabled because there was not meetings with the accommodation. Very few happened before, very few happened after the second one where it was passed to you all. At the end of the second planning commissioners meeting, there literally was a comment. We're going to pass this up to the board of commissioners. They're elected officials. They're paid to make these kind of decisions. But you all have done a lot of research. I'm just going to say, this does not have to happen today. I think it would behoove the county, long-term, to take a little bit of time yourself to find out what's the long-term implication of this to Los Animas County. What's the implication to a fire department that's probably already underfunded through however they collect it, whether it's county allocations or what. These things require, you don't say, oh yeah, I learned that in class, oh I gotta run out there with my truck, oh I don't have the appropriate gas, I don't have the appropriate wear, etc. These are things that I think the county needs to be fully aware of before you walk into it. Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. No, thank you so much for coming in front of us, and your information is greatly appreciated.
So I hope it didn't sound too overly.
We appreciate that, and at this time I'm going to call from any one of the proponents. I did take a note of the questions. The first question is on the proposed megawatt plant size. In your document, it says that it would be a 200 megawatt. Is that?
Correct. Yeah, that's correct. I actually have a list of most of his questions and answers. If I forget any,
Very
it
good.
easier. Okay. So I just want to start off with kind of where you started, and thanks, Mr. Peterson, for the context. I think the first thing you mentioned was the fact that this hearing is not as crowded as the first one. The first one, there was also another NextEra project in that audience, and that was about 85% of the room representing that project. So I think that's worth noting. I also think the second point that Mr. Peterson raised was some kind of tough back and forth with Bridwell, the other mineral owner when you called them. I'm not really sure where that came from. I would love to chat about that. They've been very easy to negotiate with. I think it was 2 back and forths total. I sent them a written offer, they redlined it, sent it back to me, I sent it back, and we agreed in a discussion, and it probably took 3 days max this past week. I think the third thing mentioned was regarding 100% mineral right language. That was not said by myself or Cypress Creek as far as I'm concerned. I think that was a miscommunication between the landowner and us, and I think that was said outside of the context of my presentation. Another thing that was mentioned was the megawatt sizing of the picture I showed, or referenced, I guess, that project in Oregon. That project is 13 megawatts. Our project is 200. I was referencing the landscape of that project, given the mountains in the background. I wasn't talking about the sizing. I mentioned that just the way it looked from a geographical aspect is what it would look like. It has nothing to do with sizing. The next point, I think Sarah just said the same thing, but so CPW insisted on an 8-foot fence. It was not 9. I think she just misspoke a little bit. It was an 8-foot fence, which we completely abided with barbed wire on top.
So the 8-foot fence is the chain link in addition.
8-foot chain link fence and then additional barbed wire.
That makes it 9 feet.
Give or take for us. Yeah, they told us 8-foot chain link fence, so that's what we were going with. I don't know if the barbed wire is exactly a foot, but somewhere around there, yes, sir.
So the clarification for the record, it's that the plant is 200 megawatts and the storage facility is
100 megawatts. So I'm probably overstepping because this is what I do for a living, but 100 megawatt battery, and I said 400 because it's a 4-hour battery, meaning at peak optimization, it can store 4 hours, which would be 400 megawatts. I have a printout from my storage team that I can print out and show you guys, and it's probably much easier than me explaining.
And it's worth to battery components, the makeup of those components. I personally would like to see if they are, as Commissioner Tony has, the makeup of, are they going to be lithium? Because that's going to also require our firefighting departments within our county to be fully aware of what type of, in the event of a catastrophic fire out there, what they're responding to, and what type of a firefighting they need to be engaged in.
Yep, completely understood. I'm reaching out to my storage team on that answer as well. I should know that answer, actually, but I'm going to reach out to make sure. Another thing that Mr. Peterson just mentioned is regarding the geological studies. We had a call a couple months ago, and I know he made the point about used cars, but I think it might have been misinterpreted. We don't do these studies in-house. We don't have anybody that can do these geological studies. We offered Mr. Peter to pay for Mr. Peterson's geological study, which we will still do. He can pick the firm, they can go out there and look if there's any minerals. And as he mentioned that I said something regarding money, I also have documentation that Mr. Peterson on our last call, or 2 calls ago, said that his minerals could be worthless. And that's why I wanted to offer a geological study, so we can make sure we're being fair and best intent. I just want to mention as well that the other mineral representatives that were here, Goodwill Oil Company, we came to an agreement very, very quickly with them. They have on their team that we were negotiating with is a geological expert, and I mean, negotiations are negotiations. People are always going to want more money, and that's just how it goes. And they were still being very fair, even if it was high or low side, whatever you want to call it. They know the area, they study the area. They have, I don't know if they have specific documentation, I can speak for them, but they were very aware of what their minerals were within this exact same area, and we came to an agreement fairly quickly. Like I mentioned, we did offer that some sort of geological study for Mr. Peterson. And again, I will offer it again. We will pay for it. You just have to choose the company and let us know. We do not conduct those in-house, but we are willing to be as fair as possible with whatever they say. We can negotiate starting at that point. If they come back and it's $15 million or $5, we'll start there and we'll go from there. That's how we want to be fair. I think that's the best way to do this negotiation process. And if that's not the route we take, then we stay with what we're at, just kind of rehabbing going back and forth. And I personally believe, I'm not the CEO of this company, so I can't just sign checks for certain amounts of money. But I think what we have offered Mr. Peterson, according to his last negotiated redline offer, is very good money for quote unquote him saying these minerals could be worth. with us.
So, a couple of clarifying questions for the record, and remind you that you were still under oath. You
Yes, sir.
mentioned that you documented the negotiations for the minerals 100% to include mesa minerals. Is that what we understood earlier?
Yes, sir.
That you have all the documentation signed by all three minerals?
No, we do not have a signed document with Mesa Minerals. My point of that was we are underneath, where we are following Colorado state statutes for mineral negotiation accommodations.
Thank you for the
Yes,
clarification.
Negotiations.
Yes.
Yes, sir, not signed document. We have 2 of the 3.
And again, not necessarily our, the county, one of the questions that Mr. Peterson asked was what happens on that 15.5. As the list indicates, I asked the question before, let me go ahead and state it once again. 15.5 years, there's a clause within the lease that either party, more so the landowner, could exit. That's basically an exit clause. At which point in time, if there was no agreement between the two, your company and the private landowner, the decommissioning would commence with notification to the county immediately.
That's correct. Jordan was going to touch on that as well. No, more folks. Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit of clarification there. So the agreement between the landowner and Cypress Creek is in the lease itself, and that actually talks about the decommissioning standards and agreements that we have with the landowner. The county then layers on top of that, and one of the things that's come up with the Planning Commission here as well is that we will be posting a decommissioning bond with the county. The way that will work, and I know Zach just got updated numbers, is that bond will go into place upon construction immediately, so that there'll be no concern that there won't be money to take this project down, whether it's decommissioned in 15 years or 40 years, or we extend the lease and it's 60 years. However, at whatever point it is decommissioned, the money will be there with the county, and then we're going to update that every 5 years, so that the county has that confidence and reassurance that the money that's there is going to be enough to decommission it. One of the concerns that we hear a lot from counties, and rightfully so, is if we pick a number at the beginning, how do we know that's going to be the right amount in 40 years? Everybody knows what's happening with inflation right now, with changing technologies that you've mentioned, we have no idea. So we propose to update that every 5 years. That means an engineer will come out, do a study, come back to us and say, based on the project right now, you need X dollars to be able to decommission it, and then we would update that bond accordingly. So that whether that's in 15 years or 40 years, that money will be there and that decommissioning will start as soon as the project ends, whether that's because there's a termination or an expiration lease. Does that address your question of how we should?
What is the dollar amount of the bond initiating at?
The newest one. I got it last night at 10 p.m., so I can flip that to you now. If you want me to pull it up right now. You're talking about for the updated 5 year?
Yeah, for what the initial bond cost.
Yeah, the decommission bond.
For the first 5 years.
Yeah, for the
Yeah,
first
I want
one.
to say 9 million.
Okay.
Yeah, but that would, don't want to tie us to that number since we're
Right.
checking, but
I
approximately.
just want to make sure it wasn't 50,000.
Oh, no.
No.
No, these are, yes, these are substantial ones.
Yeah, first 5 years, 9.1 million.
Thank you.
Sure. Nick, Jordan. What was I going to say? Oh, I just want to mention too that, as you mentioned, we are going to update this thing every 5 years, but I know that's also required from our planning discussion. That is not required for the county. A lot of solar projects, or a lot of counties, I guess, that do require this for solar projects in the United States, just from other markets. So I do think that's a great thing because it's hard. We're basing this off of 2025 numbers. We can't base off of 2065 numbers. So I agree to completely every 5 years, so we update it.
Chairman, if I may ask Mr. Bartholomew one more
Sure.
question. After hearing Mr. Peterson's testimony today and concerns, and thank you for those, Mr. Peterson, regarding the county's due diligence, which there's some questions we've asked you, and we're hopefully getting the answers for those, bringing that to our attention. The other comment that Mr. Peterson was really focusing on as well was the negotiations with him and his mineral rights. How close are you in getting that completed with the mineral right owner of Mesa at this point in time? Do you see that coming to fruition soon?
Yes, sir. Honestly, thought it would be done by now. I think, like I mentioned before, I have a certain approval limit I can do. I think this is a lot of money we're talking about here. So, I mean, being as fair as possible is one thing, but also, both parties winning. Our goal here is to be a good neighbor, come to an agreement. Mr. Peterson, covers his minerals and he's accommodated in that way, and as well as us, we can not have to do any avoidance areas or anything like that. That's not our goal. We want to have 100% mineral coverage, and I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to keep negotiating and going back and trying to be as fair as possible. I think, I don't know if Jordan wants to hit on that, but I just want to also mention, as far as our last hearing was the same verbiage, I guess you can say, but that is between us and Billy Peterson at the end of the day. That is our goal. We are doing, I have 12 projects. I have a lot of mineral negotiations going on. I'm trying my best to make Mr. Peterson happy as well as my boss. And I want to just reiterate that at the end of the day, that's between us and him. It should not affect the SUP permit approval at all. Given that it's not part of the process, we've done everything in the process to expertise levels, all forms. As far as our conditional approval from last time, we have committed to and have a report for the updated 5-year decommissioning estimate bond, which we have committed to, and as well as the other condition of following all the Colorado state laws. We've always been in accordance with the law as part of these projects. Just the last point that Bill Peterson made was something about Center Street doing what we say we're going to do. That project map says it all. We have 200 projects; they're all completely built, serving the communities. We do what we say we're going to do. We're a well-established developer. We're not a startup shop. We can't afford to not do what we're not going to do. We can't afford to not do what we're say we're going to do. So I just want to make that point clear as well.
Thank you. Chairman, if I may ask Mr. Recall, Mr. Lucero back up for a question.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Hearing that, Mr. Lucero, in the application, and not having one mineral right owner consent at this point, does that inhibit whatsoever the application of this SUP?
No, it doesn't.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Lucero, thank you so much again for the work that you put in this. And one of the questions that, and I saw the correspondence that you have had with all the neighboring landowners.
Yes.
And all the ones that you submitted here, basically pro and con, where within sworn testimony, do you feel that every one of the neighbors of the project were fully contacted, and within what is the radius of the contact that you have with those landowners?
Normally, anybody within 300 feet of the perimeter of the project area would be notified. And anybody that owns minerals within the project would be notified. And at this point, I think there was some issue in the first meeting with, I think, yeah, because they hadn't updated their records since 1969. So they had to go through Jody to bring up to date, because there's so many minute mineral owners in a lot of, especially out east, you're going to find that. So it's pretty hard to keep track. And the assessor's office will admit to that. Probably once this is finalized, we'll probably use their information to give to the assessor to update their mineral record to be more accurate. So.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lucero. And yes, Mr. Bartholomew.
No, I think everything Mr. Lucero said was correct. I just want to mention, so there's 3 total mineral owners. 2 are here, ones that are completely signed up and basically messaged me and said they don't need to attend. And as far as landowners, there's not many other people out there, if that's what you're asking. I think we have a total of 7 on the list. We sent it to all of them. We sent the receipts to Mr. Lucero as part of due diligence, and everything was good there. So we did make proper within the 30 days, I believe. Was it 30 days? Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to stand if I may, and
give me 1 second, sir. We'll swear you in. Let me go ahead and I'll call on you after.
I just had one last comment concerning fire districts with the battery storage. When these projects come up, especially these Vermont projects come up, we have a referral list. So all these referrals are notified of the projects, which includes not just the fire district that encompasses, but we notify all the fire districts, all the school districts, electric centers of soil conservation districts. There's probably 25 or 30 agencies that are made aware of the project prior to even the first meeting, so they can come in, look at the application, or call for information. So they are aware of the projects that are coming up.
So they include, as Commissioner Luis Lopez mentioned earlier, Los Angeles County Emergency Manager, which is very, very, very important.
He's on the list, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
I don't know if he was on board at the time the original one was
Okay.
right now.
Thank you, Mr. Lucero. Mr. Adams, please come to the podium and so you can be sworn in.
You solemnly affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Bud Adams,
Thank you, sir.
Adams Land and Livestock. We are a neighbor, surrounding neighbor. My main concern is I look around this room, I see water bottles here. And in our little discussion we had earlier, they said that they may go to the owner in one of his wells for water projects to start this water project. I'm not aware of any wells in our area that are commercial. This would be a commercial project. Most wells in our area are domestic and ag wells. If you're talking water off the Piscataway River, there is no commercial water used off the commercial Piscataway River. Also, our little town of Aguilar is under a stressful water situation as it is. So most of that water for that project is going to have to come from Trinidad. And I think before this thing gets started, Trinidad needs to be approached to see if they're going to be able to come up with that much water. And then also on this side, with all this solar panels, and if there was a fire, is there going to be some storage, water storage units, storing water, just in case if our fire district can't get to that situation, or a place to add to our water storage for their fire? That's some of my questions. So as a neighbor, that's one of our deals is water. That's one of my concerns.
Sure.
And I think maybe our state water commissioner needs to be notified, also our local water commissioner.
Well, Mr. Adams, thanks for being here and bringing it up. That was one of my big concerns. I've asked that question 2 or 3 times today regarding the water and where the situation is with the city of Trinidad. It's not under the purview of the commissioners to oversee that process, even though you are correct. Most water wells are residential and agricultural, and that's it. So thank you for bringing that up to the attention of this group, and that's going to be something that's going to be falling on your shoulders to secure that water with the city of Trinidad. The town of Aguilar is definitely, we just signed some paperwork regarding their watershed recently for having that access to that, so we understand completely. And being the commissioner of that district, I'm wholeheartedly behind securing the citizens' water rights before any type of energy corporation such as this one. So it is a very big concern. That's why I brought it up twice today, and thank you for following up with that.
Thank you.
Mr. Adams, I believe.
Yes, and maybe you can answer this, the proponent, Mr. Bartholomew, but lithium batteries, I don't believe you can put that fire out with water. So, I've done my research also. That's why I was adamant about the sodium batteries. But
I actually just got a message back from our storage guy. So these batteries will be lithium. They will be lithium iron phosphate. Another type of lithium iron used. So he's basically just telling me that it will be lithium iron phosphate, much safer than NMC, which is just another type of lithium ion used for other commercial products.
And we need to be aware of how to put that fire out, because it's, in my research, it's a chain reaction. If one goes, the other.
Okay. Yeah,
So our fire departments will have to be aware.
Yes, sir. And we're, as mentioned earlier, we're going to coordinate an emergency response plan and all that good stuff. But I did want to clarify this lithium, and also clarify, Mr. Adams, I appreciate your points. When I was talking earlier, it was more so what these solar projects would normally do, which is look for wells on property or export it. I've talked to my brother in the past about this, and obviously we're not going to have enough water there, so we're going to be exporting water to this project.
Importing water.
Or sorry, importing. I'm sorry. Excuse me.
I like for you to export water.
No, that'd be great. No, I was
one of the same comment going back. I had asked the question earlier. Who is the manufacturer of these solar panels?
It depends. I mean, so the United States, they're starting domestic content in 2027. This project's probably going to be before that. So, I mean, we have options. It's almost kind of like an RFQ process, right? I mean, you look at pricing for these panels. It's all about schedule at the end of the day. So we haven't picked a manufacturer yet. We have obviously warehouses, I guess you could say, of logged panels. However, the newest and greatest, they upgrade panels almost annually recently, honestly, in the past couple of years with how renewable energy has been going. So I believe, I want to say these are 560 watt panels, they might be more, but by the time 2026 comes, they could be closer to 600 watts. So in manufacturers, they'll create different ones. We do have a warehouse of panels, and we try to use those as best we can, but at the end of the day, project financials and optimization is more important. So whatever panel we need to acquire and use to make sure we hit all those goals is what we're going to use. I preferably consider to say, our goal is to use the new domestic content added panels made in the United States, but that's not reliant on us. That's relying on companies like First Solar, companies like that are going to actually manufacture them out of the United States. And they've given us a timeline, and so we're hoping they abide by that. We can use those.
So that opens up, Mr. Adams. Thank you so much for those comments. One of the comments following up, a question following up his comments is, now that we know the makeup of the batteries, will your company keep the firefighting materials through the MSD information, the manufacturer safety data sheet information that's going to be there? And then, of course, we're going to be talking two different perspectives. One is, in the event that it takes, as Commissioner Tony Harris is indicating, one of the batteries catches on fire, if they're going to be stacked up next to one another, there's a possibility that all of them could, or at least a good majority of them. Will you have enough firefighting material on site until the fire department arrives? And second, I'm going to ask this, that I think it's, as we're entertaining new technology, that your company engages in very in-depth training with the local, as Mr. Lucero mentioned, with the entire Los Angeles County Fire District, because this could be a catastrophic event, and then of course the toxicity and the fumes.
Yes.
I think part of the MSD data sheets that will be identifying the chemical makeup of those things now creates a whole different Q&A.
No, I totally agree with everything you just said. Sarah and I were just talking about that. We can commit to training those individuals, coordinating with the emergency responders as needed. But I think more so before that, I think pending approval today, obviously, excuse me, I'll go ahead and start that outreach and see the best way. I've actually never done that process in my time with the renewables in 3 to 4 years, but that is a great point. We can do that. I also want to mention, as far as you're saying batteries, this is one battery. So if you look at the site plan, it'll show a little squarish with some lines through it on the top right. That's where our BESS will go, battery energy storage system. It'll be one 100 megawatt battery. Now there's several that can turn into a line of fire.
What is the physical geographic footprint of that battery?
Are you asking measurements?
Yes.
So it'll be the very max is 10 feet high. 100 megawatts, I can guess, if that helps you. I want to say probably 40 to 60. Yeah, it's outlined on the site plan, the actual footage, but I want to say it's 15 by, I call it 40 at the most. So, please take a look at your insult.
No, I think that's understood.
But it is on the site plan.
The last thing we want you to do is guess on a project of this magnitude.
Yeah, but you can see this
once a fire commences there, well, now we're speaking one unit.
Yeah, there's not going to be multiple. It's going to be one single standalone. standalone storage system?
Chair, if I may, Mr. Bartholomew was a board member of Los Angeles Workman County Board of Health, Public Health here.
Sure.
And that conversation needs to be had, or a conversation with your company and Kim Gonzalez, our executive director, moving forward in case of a fire.
Sure.
For our toxic air quality for the residents of Los Angeles County, especially the town of Aguilar, and possibly in correlation with our emergency management team, Mr. Joe Richards, along with the health department, in case of this type of horrible accident or incident that could occur.
Yes, sir.
And that needs to be coordinated as well.
Yes, sir. I think that's a great point. More so a question for you guys, maybe. Would that have anything to do with this Spanish Peaks Fire Department as far as what we're talking about with them? I mean, we're just donating to them right now to help them, but...
So the health department assists with fires as well for air quality monitoring.
Okay.
So they are a critical piece in getting notifications to residents when we do have wildland fires and or other emergencies, flooding or any other type of toxic issues to the community members. So
yeah, that makes sense. Okay, sounds good.
Right, and my last closing comment would be, we really have the levels from the company in case of a fire. What are the toxins being exposed into the atmosphere, and more so to the residents of our community in Aguilar, and or even Trinidad, I mean, depending on the way the wind is blowing. I think research needs to be had. Maybe we haven't had any fires, but we always have to make that assumption, what if? And we would want a response. That would be an awful way to make the national news. There's a fire of such magnitude in San Luis County, so I think homework in your company's behalf, how to put out a fire, what are going to be the fighting elements of a fire.
Right.
And so, to me, again, part of our job here as an elected board is to protect the safety and welfare of our constituents, and then, of course, figure out a way for the private and the public sector to work together. So there is a responsibility on which all of us come to the table to address, even from the perspective of the water or lack thereof from the surrounding communities.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Another point too that I just thought of in my head. So I work on a team of 8 people. We all in different states and markets. Some people I work a little bit closer with than others. And I just want to mention one of my coworkers. She owns the Washington market, and she actually had a county hearing not too long ago. They asked very similar questions, and she has a very detailed fire prevention plan using basically this exact same technology we're talking about here. It's a little bit smaller project, maybe a little bit bigger. I can't remember exactly, but it's the same size battery, stuff like that. So I think just speaking out loud more so, I think it's been approved by multiple organizations, that fire plan. So I think that would be a good place for us to start maybe here, if there's no further evidence in the county for research. But I will do both.
Thank you, Commissioners. Any other questions? I follow you. Again, at this point in time, I want to ask once again for anyone in the audience. Oh, please.
Yes. I just wanted to follow up with a couple loose ends after Zach's presentation, if that's all right with you all.
Yes.
So just quickly to speak on that last point. Zach said that certainly to the extent that you all are concerned, and this speaks a little bit to Mr. Peterson's comment about us needing to do what we say we're going to do. Ms. Nelson, please correct me, but you have the ability to put conditions on approval. So for example, to that last point, if you want there to be a fire response plan submitted and approved to the health department before we start construction, that's something that you could make a condition. We have, like Zach said, the information to do that, and we'd be happy to do that. So to the extent that there is a concern about the follow through, you all have that option. And somewhat to the point, there was also a question about diligence and about studies, and that's really what is set forth in the county code, the studies that you all have requested that you've wanted done, and that we have submitted. If you need to see updates to those studies, we are happy to provide those. And also just wanted to point out that those are all done by third parties. Those aren't any that are done in-house. I know there was a comment about having those reviewed, but I would just like to point out that those are all from professionals who are licensed, who do this for a living, They are, through their own qualifications, they could not falsify reports. They would need to be up to a professional standard, and that's what was submitted along with the application. And I know there was a question earlier about what happens if this project is transferred. Zach said that's not our plan, but to the extent that it would, and again, Ms. Nelson can speak a little bit more to this, but this application, or this approval, the resolution would stay in effect. That doesn't go away just because we transfer the project. Whoever we sold it to would need to abide by all of those requirements that you all set forth in your resolution of approval to the extent that you do vote to approve this. So that is something that if you have concerns, if you want annual check-ins or annual updates, so that whoever, if we did sell this, the new person would be bound by that, you are welcome to put that in the resolution. We will need to abide by that as well as anybody that we transferred it to the extent that actually happens. And finally, Mr. Lucero spoke to this a little bit, but I just want to briefly come back to the mineral ownership question. He is correct that just having signed surface use combination agreements with all mineral owners is not a requirement for approval, both under the county's code as well as state law. There is a doctrine of reasonable accommodation under Colorado law. We have to comply with that. Mr. Peterson has to comply with it. All mineral owners and surface owners have to comply with that. So we know that's what will govern, regardless of what happens here. But that is outside of the county's prerogative. You all are to follow the code, but we understand that we can't just do whatever we want. We're bound by that Colorado law. So just wanted to make that clear. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. One last call for anyone at this time, either proponent or opponent of this particular project, online or in the audience. And last final call for anyone wishing to give testimony for the proponents or in opposition of this particular project. Yes, sir. Please come up here.
You solemnly affirm that the ability for your testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Jeff Menegatti.
Thank you.
I just want to talk a little bit about the Colorado Parks and Wildlife and what we've been doing with them. Obviously, we know this is an area, so I have dealt with Mike Brown, who's the regional manager down here. Talked a little bit with Bob Holder, Adam Friedel, a lot with Ray Aberly. He's a ranch for wildlife guy that we've done a lot of work with. We have done conversations where they're looking into seed mixes. Right now, we're just over 70,000 acres between the two ranches. We run 600 cows. When I first started there, I'll be honest with you, Mr. Brown said if there's 10 cows stuck in the fence and one elk, Jeff get the elk out first, then the cows. He's huge on wildlife. So that's kind of our focus. So we're looking with them to see what we can do for habitat work. Noxious weeds is something that we take very seriously. We do a big chunk of money right now with DoubleTree, where they buy the chemical and they do the work. We also purchase a lot of chemical that we're doing the work on both ranches right now. So there is a lot of weed, not just weed spraying. That's why we have talked with them. They know how serious we are about it. If there's something there, we'll take action with it. As far as the area, there's 2 water tanks that are on the verge of being in the project. We've already got plans to put them out. Met with Colorado Parks and Wildlife to Mr. Adams' deal about water being on site. There will be water on the outsides of it in our water pilas. There's 16-foot pilas full of water. To be honest, we're probably going to put one on all 4 corners. So there will be 16-foot water tanks that run off of our water line. And I think, as far as I understand, we can't put water out for the project, but I think if there's water in a water tank, the fire trucks can draft out of it and spray the surrounding area. So, was there anything else? Do you guys have any other questions as far as the land manager, landowners, as far as that goes?
No, I think, the question was, now that we know that there's going to be lithium in these batteries, I wonder if water is going to be sufficient to fight a possible fire.
Sure.
And I think in addition to having water, as you described, Mr. Menegatti, and thanks for being here, For me, the concept is, will there be a storage facility to keep the fighting components, the chemicals, to fight a lithium-based fire?
Sure.
That is, and again, I'm not a firefighter, I'm simply looking into the what ifs of this whole thing.
Yes, sir. And I know at least with water, maybe we contain the grass from going anywhere else and we can contain that there. I mean, that was our thinking on the project, is make sure we have a available water source, not just what's coming on the truck, but they spray the truck, they can go over, hook it up, whatever they gotta do right there on the tank to keep the grass down. Most of that out there is grass, there ain't no trees.
And I think earlier was mentioned that there could be a possibility of putting some livestock, maybe sheep, in the facility to mitigate some of those grass growth. Having that, the vegetation grow and leave it there, it becomes a nice and beautiful fire fuel for a very hot day, and someone just going by and just, so those are the things that I'm thinking of, and if there is an opportunity to marry a project such as this one with livestock, that is where I think agriculture and technology come together.
Exactly. And that's why right now we're looking at it, we're down to 600 head, and if we gotta sell another 100 head because of this, Mr. Brown will do that. He's not gonna go overgraze everything else to do it. We're looking for more projects for habitat, for the wildlife, for all that stuff. It's not about us trying to run as many as we can on the acres we have, because we don't want it to all look like the county road. You guys are welcome to come down, look at it, look at the neighbors, you know when you hit Twin Peaks. So that's where he's at on it. The water situation, we take that seriously.
Mr. Minigotti, the water source you have now is an agricultural well for your cattle?
Yes, sir. It runs to the existing pilas on that ranch right now. And honestly, we just put in 28 miles last summer of new water lines, so it's all brand new poly pipe. We're replacing water tanks as we go, and there's actually 2 of those close to the site that are old metal with the concrete floors. We're putting all fiberglass tanks in. So that's what our plan is. As soon as if this gets through, we know the mapping zone, we've got to move one water line, but the rest of those will pipe into the boundaries so we have water on all 4 corners.
So let me ask a dumb question. Being an agricultural water source for your livestock, is Mr. Brown or the landowner a willing participant to allow that water to be used for the project or not?
We can, from the sounds of it. But the agricultural water right now is for livestock and wildlife.
That's why I call it a dumb question. Thank you.
Yeah. So are we planning on doing that now?
Right now, no. Yeah, so I think, part of the whole concept too is, and the comment was made to work with the state water commissioner, and then of course with the local water commissioner to really have all, because water around here is gold. That's going to be more valuable than probably however megawatts are going to be produced. And we've got to be able to maintain that natural resource.
Yes.
Because at the end of it, if it's ag, and now you have technology, so those are going to be questions for the state engineer that need to be completely.
Absolutely. And we never had any intentions of sticking a hose in the creek. Half the time that creek's right down there, Mr. Hass, you've been down there a lot. So I don't know where some of that came from as far as that goes. We never had intentions of dropping a hose in the Bishopwater River. We're happy when it's there. I think we've had irrigation water now for about 12 days, and you know how bad it is. We finally reached us. So that intention's not there. The water that is piped through the lines come off of wells either from houses or we use them solely for those systems. We do have 5 wells down there that tie into all them water lines. The good news is that's why we did this. We have 4 wells now that can run to where this site is. If we do have a fire, I can go turn 2 valves and flip on pumps. We'll have full pressure water go into those water tanks. If the fire department needs it, we'll have immediate water to those tanks.
Thank you, Mr. McLeod. Any other questions?
I'd like to ask a question of Mr. Doran after we get started.
Please. Thank you, sir.
You solemnly affirm as a penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Right.
And please state your name for the record.
Phil Dorgan.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Dorgan, thank you. You had mentioned that you've been in contact with the applicants and moving forward with county road issues and any other topics that you've had time to discuss with them. Do you have any concerns or questions at this time to address the board?
No, Commissioner, they have proposed road maintenance plans, structures, repairing structures, calibers, culverts, etc., like has been done in the past with other companies that the board has approved their issue bids. So I have no concerns from a road bridge standpoint.
Thank you, sir. And this is going to be the last and final call for anyone wishing to provide testimony on this public hearing, either pro or con, online or anyone present here. It is now exactly good.
I can't answer. No, please not come up. I can't answer your open
So
session.
we close the public hearing and then to executive.
You have to leave the hearing open because it's an extension.
Okay,
You can have questions.
Thank you so much.
So CRS.
It's on your agenda.
Yes. Yes.
Chairman, if I may, go into executive session under CRS 24-6402 4B, promote the county attorney for purposes of receiving legal advice. This time, 10-minute recess.
Second motion.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Felix Lopez?
Yes. We'll take a 10-minute recess and we'll come back after we go into executive session. And this hearing is still open.
Second the motion.
Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Hess? Yes. Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes, and thank you all so much for being here today, and looking at what has transpired between the planning commission and the questions that we all had today, and upon visiting with our legal counsel, I am going to highlight, and this is going to be for the proponents of the project, some conditions, i.e. concerns that we have. And at this point in time, if you individually want to agree to this or not, certainly we welcome that. Here is the project that to be in compliance with all state laws and regulations, including those for negotiations with mineral owners. State law. Second, develop and submit to the Board of County Commissioners an emergency management fire response plan that includes the input and consultation with Las Animas County Emergency Manager, local fire departments, plural, and health department. Update the plan every 5 years or sooner if the type of battery used at the location changes. Number 3, provide training to local fire departments and emergency responders for fires related to lithium and or any other type of battery. Training to be updated at least every 5 years. Bond is revised and updated every 5 years and shall be written to survive any sale and or transfer of this property. Provide updates to the Board of County Commissioners regarding the project every 5 years when renewing the bond. Provide written notice to the Board of County Commissioners, Planning Director, Emergency Manager within 24 hours of any emergency incident that takes place at the project site. And the last condition, i.e. concern, add a storage facility to store the chemicals needed to fight any fire related to any batteries stored in the area. Storage facility to be located within the fenced area, but the furthest distance away from the battery storage. That is the summation of the conditions and or concerns, and I guess for the record, at this point in time, I don't know if the proponents or my fellow county commissioners would have any comments.
Can we just ask a couple clarifying
Please.
questions? I'm just going to be sure that we're getting exactly what you mean. So for the training for firefighters from the batteries, you said for lithium or any other type of battery, is that just if we change the type of battery, we'll do an update
That is
for
correct.
that battery?
That is correct. As technology changes, we might be using lithium and sodium, whatever we have currently, but if that was to change, whatever technology is put in place, the training to be done for the entire fire district of Los Angeles County.
Perfect. And then, just want to clarify on this, on the last one, I just didn't get it. You said something needed to be located as far away from the
Add a
battery?
storage facility to store the chemicals needed to fight any fire related to any batteries stored within the area. Storage facility to be located within the fenced area, but the furthest distance away from the battery storage. What we're thinking in here, what I'm actually is, should a fire department is responding to this place, you don't want to have the chemicals to fight the fire right next to where the fire is taking place.
Oh, and then with the discussion about the bond to survive any sale, I just want to be sure if we did find ourselves in a situation where we sold the project, whoever we sell it to, could they provide a replacement bond? So essentially, we would get our bond back, they would put a new bond in place for the same amount, and then they would be bound by the same conditions going forward to update that every 5 years? Just make sure that
I think
would be okay.
that would be part of the condition, that the amount of that bond would be to survive the same estimate that went into this particular project.
And then every 5 years for the update, that is raised, that they would follow that new increased amount of bond.
Okay, yes, yeah, absolutely.
And I think at which point, I would have to, as Mr. Lucero mentioned, notification to the county, and if that bond was not sufficient to cover, then the county would have the fiduciary responsibility to say, no, that's not enough.
Correct, yes. Yeah, I just wanted to be sure it could be replaced.
No, just the one clarifying question I had. So you said the training updated every 5 years, or I guess more so like redone every 5 years. So every 5 years we're going to have an updated training for the emergency responders, correct? Is that what you meant?
Unless, right, to change the type.
Unless it's technology. Correct.
Yeah.
Understood.
And then, of course, the initial training to be
Sure.
to be taking place prior to the opening of
Sure.
said branch.
Yeah, we can commit to that.
Yes, so we have, again, for the record, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 conditions of approval. And upon the agreement of this, a notification to the Board of County Commissioners, should we approve this project, those conditions, i.e. concerns, will have to be met. Commissioners, any questions? Any other discussion?
Thank you, Chairman. My question, now that you've heard our concerns and been stated to you, is Elk, Run Solar, and Cypress Creek Renewable able to comply with these conditions?
Yes, sir.
I have no other questions.
Commissioner Hess?
Questions?
Okay, at this point in time, with those conditions on the table, I am going to entertain a motion, either up or down.
Chairman, I make the motion to approve application SUP 2023-003 by Elk Run Solar LLC, who is owned and wholly owned subsidiary of Cypress Creek Renewable LLC.
Second the motion?
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Felix Lopez?
Yes, so long as these conditions are met. Thank you all. And it is now 12:37, and this public hearing is closed.
Thank you all. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chairman, I make a motion to enter back in the regular board meeting council meeting.
Second motion?
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Felix Lopez?
Yes. We're going to go into Section 8, Financial Matters. Consideration of bills and payroll for the first half of June 2023. Finance Director Coberly.
Let's see, payroll as of June 15, $208,252.87. Do you have any questions on payroll?
Yeah, I'll put 87 cents.
Hope that's not on it. Let's see, invoices paid June 14. $262,051.83. Within this packet, let's see, we've paid FAA the plan design. We paid Armstrong for the FAA plan design. It's 100% complete. We paid them $9,371. That was the final one. We paid 60% to our auditors, $22,000 for our 22 audit. So we had an agreement for our body cameras for the sheriff. This is an annual fee in order for them to work, $15,389. Flight 1, Year 2 of pictometry for the assessors, $111,954. Fisher's Peak grant study, $19,250. And I think that's maybe about 85% complete, is the Fisher's Peak study.
Yeah.
Anything else, anything I might have missed?
No, and then just want to highlight a question here, Mrs. Coberly. The flight that was conducted by PHA, I would imagine that was completed, conducted, and assessor in the county already has access to those new files.
Yeah, probably so, yes, because Joe sent me the invoice, I'm assuming once they did the flight, they probably had all that.
And that was for like a third of the county, correct?
I think so.
I'm sorry?
About a third of the county?
Yes, I believe most of the flights are west of I-25, trying to capture the newer construction.
Any other questions on the finances? Thank you, Finance Director Burley. No questions, I will entertain a motion.
Move for approval of the finances.
Second.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Hess? Yes. Commissioner Peterson?
Yes, and one of my favorite portions, information only. Finance report as of May 2023, Finance Director Burley.
Well, I have to apologize because I forgot to attach the most important one is the comparison. I just went to go look at it and I just realized that that was not included. So I apologize. I can forward it to everybody because it's nice to see the comparison because it shows you the revenue and the expense percent-wise instead of digging through it. Do you have any questions? I will email you the breakdown of the comparison just for your information.
Pardon me being facetious, but I appreciate it.
I just thought it. I apologize.
Yes, that's okay. No, yeah, go ahead and forward.
I'll forward it because it's nice to look at, like I said, this is the information. We still have a loss because property tax is already coming in, sales tax is starting to creep again as well. So just so that we do have a loss in general fund, airport, and Northern Bridge. But the revenue will continue to come.
Thank you.
Okay?
Questions?
I will send that to everybody to look at that.
Appreciate that. That's for information only. Thank you so much. And this time, I believe we are going to do another recess to go into the DHS.
Sure, I make a motion to suspend the Board of County Commissioners meeting this time to enter the Board of County Commissioners acting in the capacity of the Board of Human Services.
Second motion. Commissioner Hess? Yes. Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes, we're going to hold our DHS director.